Hello! Good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to the stream. We might be having some tech difficulties, but we'll kind of mosey on through as much as we can. But yeah, hi. Let's switch over to camera. Hello! We are joined by a person. It's not just me today. We are here. I'm here with fantastic Ella Watts, who is our executive producer for part 3, who is currently upstaying with us because the live show that's happening in a couple of days, which is scary. Hello, Mysterious. Good morning from a chill grey day in New Zealand. I wasn't able to make the last few streams before the hiatus for part 3 production, so I'm glad to be back again. Well, this will be the first of a good few streams where I'm hoping to bring the streams back over winter, because it's, I mean, as you can absolutely tell, it is dark already in Scotland. It's been like this for 3 days. It's been like this. But yes, thank you so much for coming along, Mysterious. It is wonderful to have you here. How are you doing, Ella?
How am I doing? I have a cold. I feel like
Yes.
I need to disclaim that up top, because otherwise I'm going to be trying to pretend that I don't have a cold and people will know. But other than that, very good. Very excited for the Tower live show, which is going to be magical. The last time I actually got this t-shirt, which is a Middle Below t-shirt, the last time I came up to Scotland to watch a Tin Can Audio live show, which was the Middle Below live show, which is where I got this. And
January 2019.
Yeah, and then shortly after that I got a plane to Seattle. No, that was... Oh, well, I got a plane somewhere. There's a picture of me on a plane with this t-shirt.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I don't remember where you went, but I think it was it Podtails? Or
Yeah,
no?
no, that was... Well, you know.
Off to somewhere.
Obviously, the thing that stuck in my brain was the Middle Below live show,
Yes.
which was the more memorable thing than the plane journey. So yeah, I'm excited to go back to it's the Scottish National Storytelling Centre?
The Scottish Storytelling Centre.
Scottish Storytelling Centre.
It's a fantastic thing. I don't think, have we been, have I taken
Yeah,
you?
we went there because we saw Spark.
Yes, we did. We did see Spark. That
By
was
the
fantastic.
incredible Sarah Grant, yeah.
Yes, which I did music for.
Yeah,
I keep forgetting I was involved in that show.
So one of the things that I'm excited about with this live show is that Dev, when on stage, has just all of these very fun expressions whilst playing music. So, for example, at Spark, like, there's a lot of jokes in that kind of poetry play, as well as, like, more moving moments. Whenever there's jokes, it's just, like, Dev in the background just silently cackling whilst also just, like, playing the keys, and it's great. It was really added something to the experience, and I'm quite excited to see them, like, you know, kind of running the whole Tower live show, but occasionally just having these very fun expressions that are going to add a real dimension to it that I don't get in just the audio.
Yeah, there'll be many facial expressions on the day. On the day, it's been a time. Speaking of keys, actually, so we thought it would be fun, since we're going through part 1 and 2, which, you know, those series have music in them. I have loaded up a piano to play. So if there are any music related questions, or I want to talk about the music, and I try to remember how to play music, we have the ability to do that, so we can talk about that as well. Yeah, I'm kind of, I was saying this to Sarah earlier on. I'm really glad to be able to kind of do this listen through, just because it's been nothing but part 3 for the past like 2-3 months, and it's nice to be like, oh, let's go back and let's actually listen to how far things have come and where we're at. And
Remember, you made other parts of this show.
yeah, remember that other parts of the show exist. Yes, it does. Yes, I feel that's very important.
There was a point when Kiri was at a different place on the tower.
Yes, yeah, there was a point when we were at the bottom. And
Yeah, I mean, there was a point when Kiri wasn't on the tower, which is hard for me to imagine, really. Like, but technically, within the fiction, there is a point. I will do it, although we never actually hear Kiri not on the tower, I don't think, in the show itself.
Oh no, at the start, the first episode, you hear her like before.
Right, yeah.
And there's a little bit in part 2 where you hear like a little flashback from before as well. So, but yeah, we're going to be listening to the show, and we'll get to experience all of those moments that we just talked about in real time. It's very exciting. We're going to be playing the episodes through here, so no need to kind of load them up yourself on the podcatcher. We're going to be playing them all here. We're also going to be talking over them, so if you haven't listened to them, this is probably not the best way to experience them for the first time. But also as well, if you have any questions, just stick them in the chat, and we will hopefully I'll know the answers to them. Hopefully we can answer the questions.
Yeah, no, I think like it's important that people know that if they have any particularly sophisticated or interesting like music or sound design questions, then I'm probably the best person to answer. And if you've got any questions about like obscure podcast, like audio drama, like which one and like who made them and stuff, then you should direct that to Dev. And then that's really going to be like the best use of both of our abilities and specialties. I know what the keys on a piano are.
Which is great because I don't. I have no idea.
I was lying.
Never seen a keyboard in my life. Staring at like 4 keyboards.
Mostly I'm here to be like, hey, if you're one of the people who watches these streams and doesn't know a lot about music and sound design, I'm like your avatar in the flesh, in the room with Dev, being like, hey Dev, I don't know what this does. What does it do? How does it do it?
Oh, wonderful. Right, shall we get started?
Absolutely.
Shall we get going? Right, so we're going to start with part 1, which is probably a good place to kind of kick things off. So we're going to go through part 1. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we'll get into part 2. Yeah, I don't know why I felt the need to as though there was more to that. That is the entirety of this evening. And then we'll talk a little bit about part 3 as well, because that's coming out at the end of this week. That is coming out on Friday. Like, as exciting as it's been getting ready for a live show, the Tower Part 3 is coming out on Friday. Like,
Part 3 all around the world. Everyone is going to be able to hear it. What is going to happen? What lore is going to be revealed? Who knows what twists and turns we will learn about our beloved characters? What new music has Dev made? And what sound effects?
These
Who knows?
These are questions we will not be answering on this stream because the show's not out yet. But we can talk a little bit about Part 3, how well it's going, because I feel like for like a year and a half on stream I've been constantly saying, oh yeah, we're working on the Tower Part 3, and now it's actually done. Now it's ready to go out into the world, which is very exciting and very, very cool. But first, let's listen to part 1 and 2 of the Tower first. So this is episode 1, the very first episode of the Tower. This is Prelude and the Staircase. So I've taken off the intros that we made for them, which are gone now.
Hey Kiri, what's up?
Hey, I didn't wake you, did I?
No, not at all. I'm still
Will
up.
Poppy be making a guest appearance?
I can tell.
Probably,
Sorry.
honestly.
Insomnia still
She's
got
not
you
here,
too, huh?
actually.
Not yet.
You
Not
there?
yet, not yet.
You okay?
Yeah. Weirdly, I just made a decision.
So,
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I'm going to climb the tower.
You're what?
for a very long
Yeah.
time, this conversation was the
I'm
only
going
part
to
of the
climb
tower
the
that
tower.
existed. Was
I've
the
been
only
to train
bit that was
tickets for
recorded and
tomorrow.
edited.
Are you crazy?
And I remember just listening to it over and over
Want
again,
to
being
climb
like,
the tower
this sounds really
in
good.
winter.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad, like, I hope the
Most
rest of the
people at the
series
bottom.
kind of comes
That's
together
a
this
good
quickly.
thing.
It's
Yeah,
such a
might be able to
good,
stop me.
I think, setup because, you know,
No
his
one's ever reached
reaction,
the top.
That we know of.
Chris' reaction is so
Maybe they didn't wanna
extreme
come
that it
back
immediately
down.
tells you a lot about the
Seriously?
world and like what this
Whoa.
tower
Do you
is.
know what's up there?
You know, like
No,
there's a way
but I
that if
know
the
it's not what
performance had been
people
different,
think is
you'd have
up
been
there.
like, I don't really know
You're
what's going on
being
here. But because of the way he's reacting
I
right now,
have
you're
to
like,
do
oh well, why is
something.
this like the end of the world for them? Why is it just like going
Worried
up
all the
a
time.
tall
I need to
building the
get
end of the
out
world?
the city,
Kind of gives you a
get out
sense
of my
of how big
head,
it's going
and
to
then
be.
feel like I'm being someone.
And climbing an infinite tower to certain death is the way to do that.
It's not infinite. Nothing is infinite.
I had plans for that line. They've kind of gone now.
Whatever's up there can't be worse than what's down here. I just called to let
That's
you know
the-
where I was going. I'm not taking my phone with me.
So
I'm sorry I yelled.
this piece of music
I don't
existed
want this to end in a
before the show did, but it changed while I was making
You're
this
serious
scene.
about
Like the chords changed and
Yeah.
stuff. So it's
Are you
it was
coming
weird
back?
going back to it and then trying to transcribe this version.
don't know.
Like, oh, it's very different to what
I
came
want
before.
to.
But
It's interesting because I do
Okay.
think this melody does kind of
But
haunt
I
the
have one
drama.
condition.
Like, whenever
Sure.
I think of this, it
I get
feels
to
like
take you
yeah,
to the
the
bottom.
music is kind of
To the base.
recurring and recurring
Yeah,
and
that's what
recurring
it's called.
around
What time's
this
your
drama
train? I'll
in
book
a
a
I
very
bought a
interesting way.
ticket.
Really?
Yeah.
Rooney Runes,
Kiri,
hello! So glad
I
you could
love
be
you and
here.
everything, but I am not going up the tower.
A return.
Caught us just in time. We're just getting started.
Right.
This is my stupid decision, not yours.
Okay.
Okay.
Also, thank you,
I'm
Mysterious.
gonna
I do
try and
agree,
get
it's a
some
very
sleep
good
for a bit.
establishing intro, and I can agree because I wasn't involved in any way in the production in part 1 or part 2, so I'm not being
what
arrogant.
time's
I'm just
the
being like,
train?
yeah, it is real good. I agree. I'm just a fan.
AM.
No.
Oh, thank God.
I haven't
Can the
lost it
output for
completely.
the podcast be turned
Yeah.
down a wee bit, of course?
I'll see you tomorrow.
Pop that down there.
See you tomorrow.
Good night.
I really enjoy the transitions in part 1. Like, they're just very good.
And for me, this was part of the magic of like the first time listening to this and having listened to a lot of audio drama, and this being the first time that I'd listened to a modern, contemporary, independent fiction podcast that used music in such a deliberate fictional storytelling way that meant that the first time I listened to this first episode, it was really striking. Like, I think I was walking down the street and kind of had to stop for a minute because, like, oh, okay, like, this is what we're doing. Like, this is, like, how important the music is going to be as a character in this piece. Which, yeah, always felt very, very magical.
Thank you. No, I really like the main theme. It's like deceptively simple. I remember going back to the project file and going, this piece of music is like tiny. Like, I can't believe it sounds that full. I wish I could do that now.
Hello?
Hey,
It is very feelings mysterious.
What? How?
I know. It turns out someone installed payphones on the way up the tower.
What?
I know. It's weird, right?
It is weird,
I'll
yes.
say.
We're all like,
We'll not be
Saying
discussing that
nothing.
further.
This place is
There will be no
all
comments.
kind of old.
How's the climb been?
So far,
Like,
so good.
I'm going to talk a lot
It's
about how
giant
much I
staircase
love
right
Katrina
now,
and
one of the
Pello,
most thrilling
and
journeys
Mark
to
as well
watch.
in this, but I
mean,
love how
you did have to scale a fence to get
instantly, like,
Yeah, but you were there for that.
conversational they were
not
doing this.
freezing?
Like,
I
they
made
just
a
got
fire.
it instantly. And
You
yeah,
made a fire?
all of the
Yeah.
performances
There was
throughout the
this little
series are
line where someone
incredible.
had made a fire before,
Um,
so I cleared out the snow, made my
They
own,
make all of this
and then I
dialogue
went,
that on the page reads
Wow.
slightly stilted because I
I'm
wrote it,
impressed.
sound really natural, which is
such
great.
a
Like,
cool
they absolutely
building.
made this.
I do think they do a very, very good job of immediately playing, like, these people are recently exes, which is such a difficult emotional vibe to capture, but you're just like, oh yeah, these people know each other very
It's called a
intimately,
ziggurat.
but there's just a tiny awkwardness,
Really?
like, where it's just like, okay,
did
like, there
you
was a
know that?
time when they knew each other even
I've been
better
reading
and
about
felt
the
even
tower
more
all
comfortable
day.
with each other, and now they're in this place where it's like,
Yeah.
well, I know everything
I wanted
about
to know
you,
what you're getting into.
Yeah.
but also
If there's anything
but
to
now there's
stories.
this gap.
It's something that's always been there. I just never thought about learning where it came from.
kind of sweet. Anything interesting?
Nothing you don't already know from climbing it.
I didn't know it was called a ziggy.
This bit was improvised.
A ziggurat.
Yeah, that.
That's funny to me because I feel like Pello is much more likely to make
Well,
that kind of
it's
improvisation
very
than
old.
Katrina.
You're already
I like that it was that way around.
And it was made by a very ambitious and proud king who wanted to rule the sky as well as the earth.
Again, king stuff definitely
happened?
never gonna
Well,
be
he ordered
at all
the tower
relevant
built,
later.
and
Yeah, we're
obviously
yeah.
it was built.
Pello did point out that we are releasing
No.
a show
There was
about
a
how
band
bad
of
kings
local
are
workers started descending
at a very
the tower
interesting
and
time.
never
I mean, at the
returned.
best time. Because kings are bad. There's never a bad time to release a show about how bad kings are, because kings aren't gonna stop being bad, and I say that as a medievalist.
Is it weird? I mean, we were pretty final when I left.
Oh, I'm embarrassed to hell.
I will
Doesn't
make
mean I
more
don't
of this
want to
bit of
hear
the
your
conversation
voice
one
I just heard the
day.
phone and you were the only person I could think to
Question.
call.
It's
Yes.
okay, Kiri.
Love of music comes through in the structure of the tower, but would you say
I
your
miss you.
film-related studies influenced the way you
miss
structured
you
the
too.
tower? Not really, and that was kind of
Going to
deliberately
go. I
so.
think my
Like,
time's about to run out.
I feel like
If I
with
find any more phones, I'll
the
give you
Tower
a call.
Part 3 Royal Funeral
Okay.
Special.
Good night, Chris.
You get a gold star.
I think you're already a VIP, Runes. I don't think I can make you a VIP again, unfortunately.
No, you just have the like emotional pleasure of knowing that I, Ella, have given you a gold star. Congratulations. I've never given anyone a gold star before. You have it from me. Cash it in however you choose at some point in future.
Yeah, well, because when I've made Middle Below and when I made Tin Can, they were very much influenced by film, and there was a very visual element to it. Whereas with this, I was very much like, I don't want to think.
Please leave a message.
I don't want to think of it visually. I very much want to keep it. I want to focus on it as though I don't know what it
Kiri.
looks like, and I want to kind of
I
tease it out
I
through
didn't
feelings
pick up
and
because of the strange
wanted it to be vibes based. Just parsing it out through feelings and
My phone
emotions
isn't working,
and
so I'm on a payphone.
doing it that way.
Just
So
wanted to
yeah,
let you know that
I didn't really think of this visually,
I got here
which
all
I'm
right.
getting into trouble with now
It's
when
fine.
I'm like, I need to actually have some idea of what this looks like now.
Yeah, like as you're exec on part 3, there were definitely a couple moments where you're like, oh, this thing is just here, and I'm like, there needs to be some. I'm not in your head, so I need to know what this place looks like.
For context, Ella has been very good at having meetings with me, reading scripts, and going, so where's this going? And I'm like, I don't know yet. I'm going, no, you can't keep kicking this down the road.
Yeah.
You need an answer to this. You actually need to know where this is leading. Which has been very good. It means that part 4 is kind of already in a good place, which is nice. We've already got like some set pieces. We're also about to hear one of my favourite interactions in the whole series. Just anytime Mark Galley is speaking, just the amount of personality he gave Ike is incredible.
I love Ike.
Like,
Hello?
Oh. Wow, okay. Hello? Who is this?
I asked first.
Well, my name is Ike, and I run the phones on the tower.
Really?
I mean, I don't run the phones. I test them to make sure they're still working.
That's your job?
As far as I've been told, yeah.
Why'd you have to test the phones?
very nearly gave a
To make
spoiler
sure
away
they're
there.
still working,
I'm not.
obviously.
No spoilers.
No,
there are
I
no
mean,
spoilers.
Nope.
Why
I was
do
very
you
close to making a
them to be
joke
working?
that would be a spoiler,
In
but I
case
didn't.
someone
I'm
needs
proud of
them,
your self-restraint.
like yourself.
Yeah, I suppose so.
That's so interesting that you
I'm
didn't focus too
curious.
much on its visuals in the creating,
You picked
because
a strange
for me
time
the
to be
tower
on
is
the
actually
tower,
super duper
Kiri.
visual.
Well,
The music delivers so much for that.
you know?
That you see, that's the
What sent
tower
you up
is
the
the project
tower
that has
in
the most fan art
September?
out of everything I've
Wait,
made.
you said the phone,
Um,
so there's more than one?
Yep.
But it's interesting because I feel like
How
everyone
many are there?
everyone has very different ideas
know.
about what it looks like, but at the same time there's
Said you
lots
love
of
the phone.
overlap and lots of
Yes,
motifs that you see,
I did say that. But I
Kind of-
also said I don't really
You see
run
them
the
popping up
phones,
over
I
again,
test them.
which
I
is
just put
really
the
interesting
phones
to me.
There.
And it's
You know
great
what
because
it
a lot of it lines up with how it
I
looks in my
don't
head when I'm
know.
listening to it.
Someone with
So
a
that's been
keen
really
eye
interesting.
for communication and high altitudes, I guess.
Yeah.
If you're testing the phones, surely you must
but,
know how many there
You know,
are.
this is where I get on my little soapbox
Not
about
quite
concept
how it
albums
works. I
and
just sort
prog
of
rock.
press a
Like,
button and
um,
listen to the ringing. If there's a gap,
when you're
it
listening
means
to a
put the
very
phone
good
out.
piece of music. I mean, I do that. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I absolutely do this.
don't
Like,
know.
when I'm listening
Write
to a
it
really good
down
piece of music that I
somewhere,
really
I
like,
think.
I am absolutely
Thanks.
making a video in
Never
my head.
happened before.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what's
Just
the
me
story
out here,
and
so I
Yeah.
can't really
doubly
ask
so when
anyone.
it's a concept album. Like, I have a whole
Okay.
like War of the Worlds film in my brain that plays
I'm
out whenever I listen
climbing
to
the
it.
tower.
Like, oh,
I gathered.
it's very
I
good.
just bring my phone with me, and I don't know how
But like
long
this is the
I've
thing,
been
like as much as audio
climbing
people
this thing.
joke about audio being best for
very
visuals,
long
it's
time
also
if the
true.
story is
Like
to be
that
believed.
you can tap into people's imaginations in a way that there
Depends
just
what it
isn't
is,
a
I
better
suppose.
visual engine than people's imaginations.
Yeah.
I want to know how many
Yeah.
more phone calls.
No, I've always loved that though. I've always liked that idea of you make your own
Okay.
pictures.
Sure. I'll do
So
that.
we've absolutely just talked over this
How will I
entire
let you
episode. Like, I mean, it's good. That's what we're here to do. But
Okay.
um,
Good. I will count them
this is
for
one of the
you.
few instances where I reuse a piece of music
No problem.
because I didn't want to do that, but for this episode
If
it just
you could
sort of
hang up
worked.
the phone,
So,
I need to test the rest of the phones.
Oh, of course. Sorry.
Not at all. It was nice to meet you, Kiri.
And you, Ike. I will speak to you soon.
I certainly hope so. Good night.
oh, they're so good. They're so good. They're like incredible actors. Hire them to do everything. They're very, very good. Just very, very good actors.
I mean, I definitely like because I feel like we see Pello's work quite a lot in other things, but I kind of got the impression that Katrina and Mark Galley were like more focused on different projects than necessarily like voice acting and podcasting.
Yeah. Well, Mark Galley is a poet.
Yeah.
And if we have time, we absolutely should watch some Mark Galley poetry videos, because Mark Galley is an incredible poet. He makes incredibly nerdy poems. He has a whole one that is just Pokemon puns.
Yes.
I love it. It's incredible. And you know, you can. I feel like Mark is one of these people where if you listen to his voice, listen to him perform, you kind of know that get this man on a stage and he will perform for you. And it's absolutely true. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he kind of creates a character with Ike on a stage. So yeah, like I'm very, very, very excited for that. But yeah, I'm so happy with that first episode. Like I'm still like with most projects, I'll listen to something being like, oh, I could do that differently. I kind of know better now. But I'm just like, no, this is still really good. This is still a good thing to listen to, and I feel like it doesn't need to. Admittedly, we are listening to the remastered version, but at the same time, I feel like it doesn't. I feel like it doesn't have as many. Like in Middle Below, there's a lot of things where I'm like, this sounds a bit messy, just because I didn't quite know what I was doing, or I was trying to do too much. But yeah, like I'm very happy. All of part one, I'm very happy with. But I just think that episode just worked really, really well.
No, it's still really, really strong. I think both because of, like, for me, it's the performances, which are, and then obviously the music. But I think the performance, like, that you get from Pelo and Katrina of the, like, we immediately know these people are exes, and we know that they have been very intimate way before either of them gives us any dialogue telling us that. And it's very good showing, not telling. And then similarly with Ike, it's that lovely, lovely trope of, like, very mysterious character who seems entirely mundane in their performance. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, you're told there's this infinite tower, it's all taken very seriously, it's like the end of Kiri's life, she's doing this enormous, very dangerous thing, and then there's a payphone, and there's this guy being like, hello, who are you? And it's that beautiful kind of clash of mundane and wonder, which I think is so powerful. I also do agree with Ms. Sirius's points here, which is because I have also never played a Dark Souls game, but I do agree that is the vibe that I get too. It's like very much the kind of zooming out and the bonfires and the big mist and the kind of darkness all around and the kind of, you know, awesome wonder of things.
I also haven't played Dark Souls either. People are either really surprised that I haven't played it, or they keep telling me I need to. That could be a thing for Overwinter.
Oh my god!
Is that a good winter game? Dark Souls.
Yeah. And also, I just feel like it would be fun to watch you play it, because I am never going to be able to play it because I don't know how video games work. But you do, so you could do it on our behalf.
So I don't do scary games. I can do scary games. I'm just not very good at reacting to them. You know, like just you know, I'm like the reason Middle Below is inspired by me playing Silent Hill 2. And whenever anything bad happened, I was just like, oh no, thank you, not today, running away, like no, can't do it, no, thank you. So I think that would be interesting to play Dark Souls on stream.
That would be so fun. You would be doing like the streaming equivalent of that thing where people freak out and try to punch someone in a haunted house. You have completely the wrong reaction.
Punch myself.
Also, I appreciate this joke. Lo-fi beats to you died and respawned at a bonfire too.
I love that this is just becoming a thing now. I love this. I have some news about Chill Beats to Build Profitable Dungeons 2 as well, coming very soon. Just because we're almost at a point where we can release that, but after the tower comes out.
Dev, important question.
Yes. Does
my town's economy need a dungeon?
I'm legally obligated to say yes. Like, we released a whole series. The answer is yes.
There was a cultist in that. I remember recording that in my room. And my
were
flatmate,
as well.
I had someone else in my flat who was like hearing me just like chanting.
Yeah, like because I asked so many people to be cultists for. Sorry, don't clip that sentence. Like I asked so many people to be cultists.
Zardos.
But yeah, like I lost my because we got Headley Knights from We Fix Space
Yes.
Junk. We got Charlotte Ryder, who's Heather in Middle Below. We have we got Pello, obviously, and like so many other people. I just emailed people being like, "Hi, do you want to join a cult?" But not in a weird way.
Does remind me of one of my favourite bits of pod knowledge, which is Chris Sugden from Victoriosity appears in one episode of Felix Trench's Quid Pro Euro, specifically to be a cowboy doing a sad yeehaw.
Like, I love Quid Pro Euro. I don't hate it, but it was like when we were making Dungeon Economic Model, I had a very specific vibe that I wanted to go for, and then season 1 of Quid Pro Euro came out, and I'm like, Zach, damn it! I was gonna do that. Yeehaw bracket sad.
Yeehaw.
I love the new intro you recorded for Middle Below so much because that is also me in scary situations. Yeah, like it's why I've never played a scary game on stream, because I'd just be like, oh no, thank you. I think I've done that on stream while playing games. Anyway, yeehaw, sad face. Okay, let's listen to episode 2. So I feel like one thing I'm apologising a lot for with the Tower Part 1 and 2 is that the episode lengths are not consistent. They are highly inconsistent, and it means the good people at the Rusty Quill Network get very cross with me because they're just like, this episode's not long enough to put ads on. I'm like, what do you want me to do about it?
The aims of capitalism are in direct conflict with the aims of art, but that's a whole different conversation. But I said it, not them, so you can't blame them for it. But I'm just saying.
We're very grateful for the help and support that being on the Rusty Quill Network has provided us. Okay, episode 2, The Little Church, starts off with... So, I don't like the piece of music that starts off episode 2.
Don't just lower our expectations to start with.
Well, just like, I feel like it works. It fits the monologue really, really well. The monologue is basically me saying, maybe the problems of quantum physics can also help with our mental health, which is a silly thing to try and put out there. But like I think the reason why I don't like it, which is a very strong way of putting it, I think, is just I don't think it's as strong as the rest of the soundtrack. And I think the reason is that because the motifs that are brought in don't really appear anywhere else. It doesn't, like, and for me that feels like it's not worked thematically, and it kind of bleeds into the monologue as well, where I'm kind of like, what I was trying to do with each new piece of music was bring in new motifs that can be brought in later on, and I feel like this piece of music tries to do that, but it doesn't come back. Also, the chord sequence is really weird for me. I don't normally write chord sequences like this, in a way, to the point where I don't actually remember what it is. It just sounds weird to me, and I can't replicate it. So, it's very strange. The virtuous economic cycle of the Rusty Quill podcasting. Get that on a
baseball hat.
Yeah, it's the new version of Hi everyone, Alex here. Okay, episode 2, The Little Church.
I read somewhere once that electrons don't actually exist. The only time they do, or at least the only time we can see them, is when they're crashing into atoms jumping from one tiny orbit to the next. They only exist when they're interacting with something, otherwise they're just not there. If you follow the thread of quantum physics, it's theorised that atoms don't actually exist, but are just packets of energy appearing as part of their corresponding energy fields. But at this point, the book had lost me, and I was still struggling with the electron thing.
Yeah, like this melody doesn't appear anywhere else.
I like the idea though.
Yeah, me
that
too.
reality is interaction. That to exist is to be in dialogue with the universe.
Big mood, Kiri.
Interacting with my sock. My sock interacting with my boot. My boot, the snow, the steps, the tower. It's nice to think that as long as the billions of atoms that make up me, that may or may not exist keep pushing and nudging the universe, I'm not going to disappear.
Like,
Hello?
Chris.
yeah, that's just a weird
There's another phone.
melody down.
That's fantastic. Unless you're still at the same phone.
Oh, no, I've been hiking all day.
I really like
Thank
the
God.
awkwardness of
For a
way
moment there, I was like,
he delivers
seriously?
that. That's
I reached the top of
fantastic.
the staircase.
Like
after
just the way
walking
that you really feel the forcing of the fantastic there. It's just like that's
flat thing.
fantastic. Like and then immediately follow up with you're not at the same phone, right? Like and it's just like oh I get
in
it.
the middle.
Okay. Hang on.
It's really foggy up here, so I don't
Like,
know how
there's-
big everything is.
I don't know if it's
But
this episode or the
literally
next
all
one,
I can see right now.
but
There was a small
Ike
building nearby,
does
so I
the-
thought I'd sleep there.
the
Turns out someone else had
the
the same
5 phones,
idea.
3 phones joke
There's the remain of a fire pit and
that I
another
think I got
phone.
from
What's
Monty
the building
Python,
like?
where it's just like, all right, we throw the grenade and then we wait
Falling apart.
5 seconds, 3 seconds,
Could it
5,
have been a
3
church?
seconds, and they just keep getting the numbers wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know why I always find that funny, but it
I know where you are now.
appears in everything.
Yeah, you're at the Little Church.
Cute name.
Yeah, it's where the builders paid
That's
their
me excusing
respects
myself for
before
not having a better
the
name.
tower. It was assumed they wouldn't come back.
Listen, there
so
are
it
real
was seen as
places
a
in this
place
world
of
called the
final
Snowy
confession.
Mountains and the Big Sandy
Whoa.
Desert. You're fine.
Place sure got off to an optimistic start.
How are you holding up, Kiri?
I'm okay. It's just been a long day and the fog's making me nervous. I feel a bit cut off. But I'm not cut off. I have a phone and I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
How are you?
Oh, I'm alright. Just getting by, you know? I'm still a little worried about rent this month, but who isn't worried about money, right?
I think I wanted to do
Really
more
getting
with
into
that,
reading about
like
the tower.
talking
Yeah?
about the things
Yeah.
that I think the idea
good.
was that like
It's
the
good
things
to be
that Chris
learning
is
stuff
worried
again.
about are
Makes me feel
the
like
things
I'm
that
getting
Kiri
better every
used to
day.
worry about.
Yeah,
Nice.
well, you also set up quite a lot about
Chris?
that the world the tower is in is in a very
I'm
bad
just
place.
sorry.
Yeah.
Like, and on the one hand, it always felt to
I've
me
been this
as a listener
crazy
that that was
mess of a
reflecting just
human.
the anxiety of living in the
I just want you to
2020s
know
as a
that
young
I
person.
really-
But on the other hand, it felt like a
really
kind of
appreciate
subtly
it.
exaggerated,
said
slight
that enough.
future, you know, obviously
Thank
alternate
you for not
universe
trying to
thing
talk
of like,
me
but this
into
is even worse than where we're at right now. Like
Yeah.
this kind of again, it's that fable
Thank you
feeling.
for not trying harder.
Which I always found intriguing as a listener. Of
Kiri.
like, how bad is it, and why
doing
is it
great.
so bad?
Yeah. Well, I think that was something that ended up becoming a lot more deliberate.
gonna-
Was like, I'm not going to
I'm going to try and
I'm
get
not going to
some rest.
over-explain the
Mornings
world
are
in
early
which this
tomorrow.
takes place in because
Yeah, I should probably sleep too.
I think by the time I had this thought, it was like it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter because
2
we're
a.m.
What?
we're on the tower.
Fog.
Like,
Wow.
I think it also just makes it more timeless. It means
Yeah.
that if someone listens to it in 20 years from now and they're stressed about different reasons than the current politicians,
Good night, Chris.
then they can also listen to it and be like, oh, you're right. I feel that. I understand that feeling.
yeah, no, like, but also I also think it allows for like people can project their own.
Yeah.
I don't want to say their own anxieties, but like their own sort of things about the world that make them
Hello?
uncomfortable onto it, which I think is much more useful
Hello, anyone there?
for to kind of for the series to have the full effect, you know.
Ike, is that?
Hello, anyone there? Hello? Hello?
I think this was like sort of
something.
not a hangover from Middle Below, but I think something we realised making
What are
Middle
you
Below is
doing?
that like something that isn't
are
you
you doing?
speaking back to you and your voice is inherently
What are you
scary.
doing?
Yeah.
So we're
Who
like,
is this?
I was just like, I can do that again, like, and make it even
Literally
scarier.
getting prickles
Stop
down my
it.
back right now. Ugh.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Ugh.
This is just a bit I forgot to edit out, but but I'm just like, it works.
This is also just the thing, which is like what I like about that moment with the voice on the phone is, yeah, don't do that. Why would you do that? You're just trying to spook me.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Hang on.
What are you...
So we just manifested the third episode. Sorry, you were saying something.
Oh, the computer took over. No, well, just what I like about that moment is that it also changes the stakes of what the tower is.
Yes.
Like, in the first episode, we've got this idea of this immense structure, but that is largely passive. And you kind of have the impression that Kiri is essentially going to try and climb Everest. But then in this episode, we get this thing of like, oh, it's also haunted. And there's something there that seems to not want her to be there. And that's kind of a fun raising of the stakes quite quickly of like, oh no, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, we'll come back to this later. But when I wrote the tower and when we initially made the tower, I wasn't initially trying to... I didn't go in thinking I'm going to talk about class consciousness and... and
Well,
historical,
you were a fool.
Historical materialism or anything, but then that just sort of happened. Like,
I mean, yes, I have also met you.
it did. Yeah, we'll talk about that when we come up to it later on. But
I
yeah.
agree with you, Mysterious, as well. It is genuinely unsettling.
Yeah, it's. I'm very happy with how that, because I think the sort of creepy thing that we tried to do with part 2, which was kind of similar, and it's something we will talk about. I think it didn't quite work because I think it was maybe too subtle because it's a sound, and I don't think anybody's asked me about it, so I think I've just put a sound in that nobody's heard. So we'll talk about that when we get to part 2. But like, yeah, we tried to do a similar thing, but it didn't quite land. Whereas this, I think, just hits every time, which is good. Because it's a really simple thing. It's just a ring modulator, I think, and some distortion, which everybody has, obviously.
I got one in my back pocket. What are you talking about?
You can make one with a paper clip and some string.
I know so little about it that I am not sure whether you are being serious.
So the music there, by the way, just because I think this is worth talking about. It's a So that's a very particular kind of chord that I didn't know about until I was researching music and transcribing music to make for the show. And I can't. What chord is it? Is it a 9 minor ninth? I can't remember. It's an extended chord, obviously, but I couldn't make them work within a song, so it's just like like I'll just do an arpeggio and then it was like, I guess I'll make it go up. There it is. So that piece of music is probably the most simple out of the soundtrack, but at the same time it was just a chord that I thought sounded cool.
I love it. It's very Ghibli too. It really reminds me of Spirited Away, especially.
But now we're in part 3 and I can know a little bit more about music. There are a couple of pieces of music that actually use those chords in a melodic context, so it's not technically a spoiler.
No. So that we would define as a teaser.
Just somebody listening going, what? You were going to use minor ninths on the soundtrack? Ruined! Oh no! I was waiting to find that out. I wish.
You great fool.
Okay, let's episode 3.
More.
Is this the one that has? No, I'm thinking of episode 5, where it has the bit the bit in the series where everyone cries consistently. I will have a lot to say about that when we get there. Minor ninths in this economy, like.
You can't!
I'm climbing the tower.
Oh, sorry. I'll start that from the beginning.
What are you doing?
I'm climbing the tower.
What are you doing?
I'm climbing the tower. running away.
See, this feels really small now because I'm so used to making it bigger. Like,
Doesn't fix.
because I run everything through so much more processing now.
What are you doing?
But in some ways, in a kind of meta way, I think that works quite nicely for the journey of the tower. Like, as a piece of art, it's quite cool that as you grow as an artist, Kiri gets higher up, and like the show gets bigger as Kiri sees more. And when she starts off, you know, I am walking up the tower and I am very much focused on my immediate area because this is so immense and overwhelming that I'm really just focusing on just the 5 feet around me.
Yeah.
And you as an artist are focusing on the 5 feet around you. And then as you get further up, she gets further up and you get a bigger view, and that's quite cool as a piece of like cultural history.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I've always kind of liked that the show has grown with all of it. Sorry, I'm very aware we're going to get another amazing, like... This is the only time you hear what Ike's rings sound like. This is the only time you hear that. They're slightly different. That's him checking all the phones.
Kiri! Hello!
So,
Ike?
You're still alive!
first of all, incredible delivery. I love it.
suppose I am.
No notes.
Fantastic!
Yeah.
I think there might be something wrong with this phone.
But
Oh yeah?
Well,
Mark
I've
makes a
been
point
trying
of
to
saying
put my
Kiri
money
the
in it,
exact
keeps
same way
rejecting my coins.
every time
Oh,
he
yeah.
answers
All
the phone
phones have
now.
been set to toll
I have so
free.
many takes of Mark saying
I
Kiri
actually
the
can make
exact
all phones
same
toll
way.
free while you're on the tower.
Just does it every single time, and it's always funny. It's always
I
very
don't
good.
know.
I'm confused.
It's also
left
just
a
like
note.
the most unsettling thing someone could say to
saying that
you
someone
on a
was climbing the
telephone
tower,
on an infinite tower is,
asking if
"You're
the
still
phone was
alive."
still
Yeah.
on.
Well, I wasn't worried that I wouldn't be until you said that, but now I guess I'm just going to worry in between every phone call.
Phone?
Yeah.
How are you doing? How's the climb?
Genuinely sounds interesting. Like, how you doing? Like, very happy.
I spent the day walking around the plateau trying to find the staircase. I didn't realise how wide the tower is. I've been walking all day and I'm only
So
half
these little
done
bits of
what
music were improvised.
didn't know
It was
what to do, so
basically
I
I'd
came
improvise
back
something on the
and
piano and then
pretty
go,
much back where
oh,
I
hang on,
started today.
let's move this into. It's
So
why some of
now I'm
the
in what
tracks
I think
in the
was a
soundtrack are
watchtower
labeled as
in
improvisations
a
because
church.
it was genuinely like I'm going to take a little bit of the music
Found
already,
another phone?
see if I can do something
And
on its
another
own,
abandoned
and then that's
fireplace.
where a lot of these incidental pieces
It's a
of music
little
came
bit
from.
eerie.
Because I didn't want to repeat myself. I was very much just like every episode
Focus
has to
on
have its own
helping and I
soundtrack,
just-
like as much as possible.
Not felt good today. What am I doing? This is crazy.
Ike is great, also king of my favourite joke in the whole show. I think I know which one that is, actually.
Stupid tower for no reason other than to just do something.
That's a reason.
What?
Just doing something just to do something is a reason. I mean, it's not a great reason, but it's something, I think.
I'm very aware that Ike doesn't get very many
What it's
monologues,
worth.
and that's something
I
that,
think what
that,
you're doing
that
is great.
I
Used to
also
be.
just
Climbed
want to
the tower
say,
in a long while.
not as a
Great.
spoiler, but as a teaser, that line that Ike just said makes me really sad now. Makes
oh
me really
yeah, I
sad
hadn't even thought
now.
about that. Oh, we can't talk about that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know.
By the way, I counted the rings.
Yeah.
1,216, roughly.
1,000.
So-
Yes, but there's either 2 or 4 rings per phone. I can't remember which. So, dividing that up, there's either 304 phones or 608.
I don't know why you put the big one last, but anyway,
Not so bad.
it's the
And just think, you're already 5 phones.
3 phones.
3 phones in.
I don't know
You're
why
doing
I thought that was
great.
funny, but I still do.
Yeah,
But
I guess.
yeah, Pello did ask me, "Are you actually intending on having that many?"
Okay, well,
No, like we don't hear
unless
every
there's anything
phone.
else, I should probably get back to the... Oh yeah, one more thing. People try to ring the phones occasionally,
What, it's here?
and they hit our switchboard. Someone left a
I thought it was
message
later in the
trying to reach
series.
the phone you were at the other day.
Oh no!
I think it might be for you.
Oh
Put
man,
it through if you'd like.
I have many things
Someone?
to say about this part of the
I
series.
mean, yeah, sure.
Like,
Okay, just give me a Okay, that one goes.
This is also Mark improvising.
Sorry. Is that? Okay, red one in. Okay, I think I got it.
Like just plugging something in.
Hi, Kiri's mum. Yeah, I'm sorry. I missed your call. I was been out all day hiking with Jules. So yeah, I just wanted to say I got your message, and I hope the trip is going really well.
So for recording context,
It's always nice to hear from you.
Katrina had a cold the
the
day we
house,
recorded part 1. So
House feels very quiet without you around. Huh?
the sniffling that you're hearing here
Me
is
and
Katrina having a cold.
Jules were laughing about when we used to take you hiking when you were little. Yeah, how you'd always run on ahead and always come back just to make sure we were still behind you. And we knew when you'd reach the top because, well, you wouldn't come back. You'd just sit there and wait for us. Well, usually hide behind a rock and surprise us when we got there. So Jules wishes you well. Yeah? As do I, and what we all do. I hope you're okay, Kiri, and I'll speak to you soon. Okay, bye.
So I love that monologue. I love that scene. I love all of that. And I don't know how Sarah Golding does this, but she'll send through the takes, and I'm like, these are great, fantastic. You don't need to record anymore. And then I'll pop them in. I'll put the phone filter on, listen to them again, and I'm like, this is great. This works really, really well. This is really lovely. And then the music goes in underneath, and just the combination of all of them together just breaks me every time when I'm editing the thing, which is just, oh no, we're not there yet. Yeah, Sarah Golding is incredible in this series. Like,
for me, it's something about the insecurity. I think it's the way that you can hear in Kiri's mum's voice this nervousness that makes you feel very. I think if you're a person who's ever had an older adult care about you in whatever capacity, there's a strange sort of, or at least I personally experience this, I don't know about you, but I experience a strange kind of protectiveness of older people, especially older people who are kind to me, where I'm like, I don't want you to ever feel like I don't want you to be around.
yeah.
And so I feel this kind of like deep care and protectiveness, and I when I hear Kiri's mum, I feel that, like, that kind of like desire to be like, you're not going to be rejected, like your love is accepted, and you're clearly trying so hard to be loving.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's a lot boiled into the character of Kiri's mum, both kind of in terms of in the series and also kind of outside of it. I think the thing was, like, I sent Sarah Golding a very long paragraph basically saying here is the relationship between the two characters, between Kiri and her mum, and like this is kind of like this is how long it's been since they've spoken to each other. This is why they don't really speak to each other, like what one thing I did with this, and it's something I try to do with all the kind of projects that all the Tin Can Audio shows at least, is have a meeting with all the actor, like each actor individually beforehand, and chat to them about their characters for like a couple of hours, just so they're not coming into a recording session completely like fresh to it. And yeah, like Sarah just kind of got it straight away, and like Sarah and I hadn't worked together until this show, not kind of properly. And yeah, just just blew me away with the tracks that she sent through. Like, I had to do very little editing, even in terms of like the pauses and things. Just very little. Like, they were all there. I just worked with them. Yeah, it's always like it's. I'm now at the stage where like I'm looking forward to writing the Kiri's mum sections and writing the music for them. Like,
Do you hear her voice in your head when you're writing it?
now I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, but the interesting thing was I had a very strong idea of what Kiri's mum's voice sounded in my head before, and it sounded pretty close to what Sarah does, which is quite amazing. That very, very rarely happens. But Sarah also added her like own kind of twist on it, and just I feel like this is true of everyone in the cast. They just added so much more depth than what I thought was what I think was on the page. And yeah, like Sarah and I have talked about this since. Like like there's just a lot built into that character that has been absorbed into that character as the series has gone on, which is great. And this is another thing that has come from video games, in that like there's moments in old JRPGs, Earthbound in particular is the one I kind of usually draw to, where a character will go, have a sit down, or like, do you want a cup of coffee, or like, do you want to sit in this hot spring? And then there'll be this long speech about, take a second to think about how far you've come since the start of this journey. Take a second to think how far you've got to go, and just take a moment to rest and sit in that. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with these monologues. And yeah, like I think they're kind of their own little story in themselves, which I really like. And it's, yeah. And also the very quick music tangent, the chords are very interesting as well. So they're which are very cinematic chords. I don't know what they're specifically called, but it's like you have like a fifth chord on one hand, so you've got an F and a C there, and an octave up you have a G and a D. You get this weird kind of weirdly dissonant sound. How could I forget about Undertale? Yes, Undertale absolutely also came from that. All the little bits about the mouse, getting the cheese, filling you with determination. Yes.
I mean, it's that scene at the end of Undertale where Frisk looks in the mirror.
Yes.
And you go from before where it's like, it's you, and then in spite of everything, it's still you.
Yeah.
And that definitely, Reena's, you're right. That's a big Tower vibe for me too, for sure.
Yeah. Let's listen to the interlude. Well, we can either listen to the interlude or I can play it. I don't know what would be more useful.
I mean, I want to hear you play it. That's my vote. I don't know what everyone watching's vote is. I'm going to make Dev do more work on their Monday evening.
I'm not sure I can play it on this tiny keyboard.
Oh, okay.
I can play along with it, certainly.
Play along with it. Do
it. Okay, I'll tell you what. We'll do it both ways. I'll have it play, and then we can have it that way. So. This is episode 4. It's a musical interlude. I play this all the time. Right, okay. The keyboard's not quite big enough. Keyboard's not big enough. this bit's different from how I normally play it. Well, I can talk about it before it goes back to how the bit I remember. But like,
You should get a camera so it's easier for people to see you playing, because like I was watching it was really and it was genuinely really nice to see like your fingers playing the keys of this tune that I was very familiar with. I don't know why, but for some reason, like, because of like the filters and stuff on the music, I guess, like in some ways it feels quite disembodied. So
Yeah.
it's quite cool to see it being embodied because it is being played. It's kind of
yeah, no, it's like this is. I've said this before. This is one of the few pieces of music that I've actually sat down to write.
it is beautiful.
Thank you. Like, it was the last piece of music to get written for it. Like, because there was another interlude that I wrote that didn't work. That's now the finale. So the finale was originally going to be the interlude, and then I made this instead. And I think, like, you know, our most played track on Spotify, and the one that people seem to recognize, which is great. Like, lost it again. But yeah, it's the first time I've also written string parts rather than just improvising them. I actually sat down and wrote them out. Yeah. Most played with good reason. Thank you. Also got to use just like, I know it's really nerdy to say that I got to play around with some fun organ parts, but like, I'm really happy that the way the organ part sounds in this piece of music.
It really is like, it wouldn't be out of place in a lot of the kind of best kind of properties. Like, it's just lovely.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm very happy with how it sort of did that. We were kind of saying like about the filters that it sounds quite disembodied. It does sound very, not messy is the wrong bit, like everything's sort of smooshed together, like rather than things being, you know, you can kind of hear distinctly where the piano is, you can hear distinctly where the string parts are. And it's weird because I feel like part 3 sounds like that, which is quite, the music for part 3 sounds like that, but part 2 I think sounds a lot cleaner in terms of where everything is, which is interesting.
But I do feel like that's, I mean, I know a lot less about music than you do. I only really know about music as a consumer. But I mean, I do feel like that is a style. Like, I like that I can't, like, I grew up playing the violin. I was in orchestras. I was in choirs. I am familiar with orchestral music and being able to distinguish different instruments and so on. But I like music like this because there is something magical about the way that we can use digital technology to make it feel so kind of interweaved.
Yeah.
In a way that feels very, like magical, enchanting. I don't think it's a weakness.
No, I don't think it's a weakness either. Like, if you listen to, this is a very big comparison, and I'm not making it as a comparison. I'm making it as an example of an album where everything sounds smushed together and it sounds good. I'm not comparing it to this. You'll understand why I'm making this caveat when I make it. But Purple Rain, which is much better than anything I will ever make ever. What's interesting about that is that they recorded most of it live, as in like it was a recorded live show, and then they went in and changed some parts around and cut bits up and things. And as a result, everything sounds very like echoey and quite smushed together, and it has a very distinctive kind of ambience and sound to it that sounded a lot different from other rock records at the time, where very much just like, here's the guitar doing a solo, it's louder than everything else. It was more, you had bits of instruments jutting out at different times, creating different emphases, which I thought was interesting. I think that's always been an interesting way of producing music. Fun organ parts also sound like a fitting track name of a lo-fi. I think you could probably, you know, the subtext for the Dungeon Economic Model music is fun organ parts. There are many.
In more ways than one. I like these easy wins.
episode 5 now. So one more thing about the interlude before we move on. I remember, I think it was the first. I can't remember if it was the first or second Pod UK in Birmingham. So this was the first time I met James Curtis, who is a wonderful human being and audio sort of a big community member in the sort of audio drama space.
Who, in fact, just worked on a standalone hour-long Halloween-themed audio drama starring Maeve de Bruin of Silt Verses and Secret of St. Kilda, which is coming out on a podcast called The Lightning Bottle, which he's worked on with Ollie Morris, and they've worked on together, and the audio drama is called Nightlife. So if you like kind of fun, experimental, and in this case, because it's Ollie, like kind of noir-y, very sound design heavy, very music heavy audio drama, check that out for Halloween time. It's going to be really cool. Plug to our friends James Curtis and Ollie Morris.
If you want to give me just 2 seconds, I will put a link in the chat.
Oh yeah.
Is there a feed or is it?
Lightning Bottle has one, yeah. And they've been plugging it a lot on socials, so probably. That's not it. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So.
So you met James at Pod UK?
Yes. So, but the thing is, like, we were chatting. I think it was like after a panel or something, and we were just chatting away about stuff. And then he sort of mentioned that, like, it's just like, oh man, yeah, you had a whole episode that was just one piece of music. Like, I'd never heard that before. That's an incredible thing. And that was just the first time I'd really thought about it like that. I was like, yeah, that was a weird thing. It seemed like when I was making the series, I was just like, this is the natural place for this to fall. But yeah, I think I didn't quite fully appreciate just how weird that was.
No, it's definitely unusual. It was, I think at the time, I don't know any other drama that's done that. Not even historical radio drama, really. I know that Jeffrey Niels Gardiner really wanted to make one episode of Unwell that was going to be entirely birdsong.
Yes. Jeffrey.
In fact, actually, I think that they originally wanted the whole of Unwell to just be like non-dialogue, and then Eleanor was like, Jeffrey, I love you and I love your art, but also if we want people to listen to this, they are going to need to have people. But yeah, no. Although I think actually there is now a special episode of Unwell. It's like a short episode which is doing the birdsong thing.
Yes.
Because of the way that like the birdsong on wolves and stuff in that show are very much characters in their own right. But yeah, no, the music thing, I've listened to a lot of audio drama, and I don't know anyone else who's done like a whole episode of just music. Certainly in recent years.
I mean, we say a whole episode, it's 4.5 minutes long.
No, it's still a whole episode. I mean, if you look at the kind of stuff that excellent creators like Esther Ellis and Anthony Olivieri are doing, like, there's a lot of microfiction out there. I think it's fair to say 4 minutes is definitely an episode.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really fun. It's it's a palate cleanser. You know what? Actually, sorry. Now we've started on this tangent. I do need to add this. So, there is a Welsh poetic term called Cynghanedd, which is great. I love it. So, I don't know if Mitch and Rudy are, if y'all are Welsh, but if you're not, then you probably don't know this. If you are, I apologise. You know it better than I do. But there's a thing in Welsh, like Eisteddfods, which is where people perform poetry competitively and have been doing for over 1,000 years, where you're judged on everything you're doing poetically, right? Like, so you're judged on your alliteration, your consonants, your assonance, basically a lot of different literary ways in which you are making sounds in your words. So like rhyme, but what kind of rhyme, how many S's, how many plosives, that stuff. Cynghanedd refers to every literary term you can apply to how words sound, but at the same time, what it literally means is the singing of the words. And I love that, and I think about it a lot when I think about audio drama, because audio drama is so much about the musicality of the dialogue, and so much about the musicality of speech, and the way that speech is itself a melody. And people like poets like Dylan Thomas really understood that, which is why Under Milkwood, I think, is also very musical in its writing. And it's the same is true of a lot of historical radio audio drama that you get this deeply musical speech, and I think you get it in shows like The Silt Verses, has a wonderful musicality to it, and a lot of the kind of the greatest audio dramas do. And what I love about kind of The Place of Music and audio drama, The Place of Music in the Tower, is the way that you really invoke that kind of Kanghanev, like that thing of like story and song together that is such a deep and old part of audio drama. Paul Bay says that audio drama is the oldest form of storytelling and the newest form of technology, and I feel like The Tower really embodies that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. We've had American here explain away, which is wonderful. This is turning out to be the best month / couple of months for podcasts. It is. There's a lot of really good we were talking about this earlier. A lot of crowdfunders have just finished, and there's some really good stuff. It means that a lot of money's just come out of my bank account, but at the same time it means there's some really good shows about to be made. There's one episode of Malevolent that is nearly completely dialogueless and mostly a spectacular soundscape.
Wait, you gotta tell me which one that is, because I'm up to date on Malevolent, and
it's called Coda, apparently, according to Mysterious.
I'm gonna have to go back through this. I listened to a lot of Malevolent in one day in something of a haze. I felt as possessed as Arthur is, really. But yeah, Malevolent's great also.
Yes.
The Whaler, the Esther Ellis's new thing, is I think another great thing that's just happened.
Yes, I need to listen to that, but I've heard nothing but good things.
I don't. She's a genius. She's a genius, and people just need to give her money forever to make audio drama. That's how that should work.
Excellent. Yes, I will need to catch up on that. Okay, let's move on to episode 5. So this monologue was like the first bit of The Tower that people heard, because we performed it at the...
I was there.
You were there at that show.
I remember. It was very striking.
It was just a very strange thing to do. Basically, after the interval in the Middle Below live show, I kind of went on stage with my little piano that's now on my desk. I'd only just got it at that point as well. And I was just like, hi, we're working on a new thing. Before we get into that, before we get back into the show about ghosts, we're doing this show that has a very different vibe called The Tower, and I was trying to describe a thing that didn't quite exist yet, and I'm just like, we have this one bit that's ready to go, so Katrina's going to do the monologue and I'm going to play music alongside, and hopefully it's going to work. And it did. It worked really well. We only had like one run through of it, but it worked really, really well. So this monologue has like a very sort of special place in my heart, as like, this is the first bit. This is kind of the first bit where everything else kind of came out of, which is really nice. And also, I think it's just a really good monologue, and Katrina does a really good delivery of it. Why is it not playing? There we go. Also, it's been so long since I've listened
When I started school, one of the
to these
first
episodes.
things
I've
that
got the
happened
order
was
all
they
wrong.
weighed everybody. I don't know why. No one else seems to remember it happening to them.
Also, this story
Started
actually
school.
happened to me when I was growing up. So
Maybe I forgot. Being
I remember the first time you told me that. It's still wild.
it's just a tiny little child.
Anyway, I was put on the scales and nothing happened. The little red arrow barely stirred. Mum was called and a doctor checked me over. There was nothing wrong with me.
Just very small.
Very small.
Can confirm they are very small.
This is also another example
I
of
guess I grew up being
Dev discovers
feeling
extended
like I
chords,
wasn't really
and
there.
it's going to make a whole soundtrack out of
I
them.
was just on the edge of existence. Just heavy enough for gravity to keep me on the ground. It was never a problem until I left home, when I was told I had to make something of myself.
Again, good organ parts.
Suddenly, I had to be noticed. I'd have some sort of footprint. I'd never really done that before, and predictably, I wasn't very good at it. I was dancing and shouting as loud as I
That happened
could.
by accident. Like, oh,
But somehow I felt even smaller for it. The bigger than anything I could ever have imagined. And I'm the only person here. I should feel smaller than ever. But I don't. I don't have to shout anymore. I just have to climb.
And Katrina just smashes it. Like, yeah.
See, like, for me, knowing you, there's something kind of about... I don't know if I'm reading it into you or if it's just what I know about you as my friend and colleague, but, like, there's something about space in there.
Hello?
Like, I think that, like, one of the reasons that I love space is because of how big it is.
Yes.
And how
Why?
I
What
love
makes
feeling
you
small in
think-
comparison to space because I find it very reassuring.
4 days.
And there's something when she
Sorry
talks about that
I haven't been
vastness
near any
Yeah.
phones.
I'm not
that I think is
mad
really...
or anything.
Yeah, I don't know, it just reminds me of my feelings
Glad
about
you're
space.
okay.
Yeah, like I think this is a thing that
How are you holding up?
I've spoken
good.
to a few people about, and it's something that Sarah and I talk about a lot.
But it was.
The like
I've been
find
scrambling
the-
and climbing for 3 days.
bigness, the
And we're all
vastness
that
of
older
space
and
very
do the
comforting.
useful at some point.
Whereas I know a lot of people find it very
Yeah.
scary, but it was just that
It's been an exhausting
kind of like
few days,
there's something
and my
comforting
arms,
about being very
legs,
small, and that's kind of where that was coming
everything
from.
aches.
But
I feel weirdly
it's quite
accomplished.
nice. Like,
Yeah, it reminds me of a line from a Night Vale.
I don't think that's weird at all.
The fog's gone
I think
too.
it's
It's
1 year
so
later.
clear up here, Chris.
It's their live show. I think it was their first big
Yeah.
live show, and there's a speech at the end. And Cecil goes,
so
so
far
look
from
at the
up here.
fleeting
It's
stars
weird.
with
I
fleeting
think-
eyes, and feel how the
I
earth
think I can
beneath
see
you
the curvature
gives.
of the earth from up
It is
here.
all
Seriously?
a
It's
temporary manifestation
gorgeous.
of particles, unraveling back
At
to
night, I look
particulate
out and I
silence.
can
The bustle
see
of the
all
human
the
day will
city
come
lights
and
switching
go,
on.
and then there will be night.
Sleep, peaceful.
that's great.
really?
Just have Ella on every week. This is reciting things
I feel like I
from.
should be having the most
I mean, you may think it's a long walk down to the road to the chemist, but that's just
crisis right
peanuts
now,
compared to.
but I don't know.
I appreciate that reference.
Up
Well
here,
done.
You've got so much perspective. I think I've realised that I'm so very small.
I think this is one of the few examples of me staying on theme for an entire episode. It can be done. It can be done.
I know, right?
You get a gold star.
Brilliant. This seems to be really doing you good.
What?
Nothing.
It's weird though that I felt smaller in the city than I do up here.
I hate how this is
There's
small.
more
It's not
people
going
in
to
the
be.
city, to a suffocating degree.
I just think it's so interesting
That
how
should
conflicted
help, but
Chris
given how
sounds
little
when
people talk to each
he's
other,
like, this sounds like it's good for you.
it's isolating.
Yeah. Well,
Everyone's
I think
busy
it's.
trying to do something, trying to get ahead of everyone else.
I think
guess
there's
that can
there's a
make you feel
certain.
small in its own way.
I can't remember if it's like openly talked about, but I think it's just that like it's the
okay?
beginning of
Yeah.
you're having this big old journey and
just
everything's
part
still
of
the
it.
same. Yeah.
Realize how much I'd miss you.
And there's that as well.
I'm sorry I didn't call.
It's okay.
But yeah.
Would have if you could.
And it's like it's something that
get it.
is explored more in
I
part
went out
two
with
of
someone
like
the other day, and I kind of realized that
you know,
we were going
my
to
life
run
is
out
the
of
same.
things to talk about.
What am I supposed to do
I think
like
that's
while
more
you're
or
on
less
this
true
journey?
for
It's,
everyone.
um,
I can't get over how normal
it was an
that
interesting
felt.
thing to try and
That
explore.
conversation can just expire like
But there
that.
is that thing of like
it didn't
people
feel
who just
awkward
leave.
when the talking
They never
died
come
out
back.
and we made our excuses to
And
call it a night.
you kind of, that's just a
That's
part of
crazy.
life that we don't talk
That
about
you
very
can
much.
run out of things
Um,
to talk about. What happens when you run out of things to talk about altogether?
You find new things.
But what if you don't?
You do something new.
Very, I have so many
Just so you have
feelings.
something to
like,
talk about?
Well, no.
I always feel like that's the
it is
fine
for you.
line that we're trying to tread with the tower. Is like we don't want to go into. I have so
Other
many
people don't
feelings,
validate your
but it's
existence.
like
You do that.
I miss you.
I miss you too.
Yeah, I think you do a very good job at
got a message
inspiring
from
emotion
someone
without
today.
over-explaining it.
That wasn't me.
thank
I'm
you.
as
I
surprised
really
as you
appreciate
are.
that because
Everything
I'm
okay?
very much because it always feels very not obvious,
It was
but
from
like
Jesse.
just and this was a thing
And
that I had no idea where
She's
this was
been
going.
trying to contact you.
I've been away.
That's what I told her. She thinks you're ignoring her.
I mean, I was.
That's what I thought. I didn't say, though.
Did you see why she wants to talk to me?
I didn't really want to
I think with this
ask.
bit, I was very much just like,
What? As far as I'm concerned,
you get to see a bit
none
of the
my
old
business.
Kiri
I told
here,
you what happened.
which I
know.
thought was kind of
I
important
was
in this
there when
episode.
it all came out.
I'm sorry. I guess I'm not quite over it yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, if she'd
It's
always
more than
been
understandable,
super
Kiri.
zen, she'd be unbearable as a character. Like, she would be. It would be
running away
so
from myself?
infuriating. She wouldn't be very interesting.
Yes,
And,
that's,
I think
and,
only
and
you
knowing
can
that
answer
she's
that.
flawed and has a temper, and, like, I mean, she's also
So what
been
do you
hurt.
think?
Like,
yeah.
I mean, my read on the Jessie situation,
did.
since Kiri is the only person
At
I know in this,
I
in
mean,
you know, is the only horse I
both
have in
were.
this race. It's like, obviously, Kiri's right. Jessie's
started
a
crying
terrible
and you
person,
just
but it's still good to know
stopped.
that Kiri can
I think
get
this is
mad
something
and
different.
have arguments and.
I think you're working out who you are with this.
See, this feels really
And
obvious,
not a lot of
but
people
like,
take the time to do that.
I might not come back, Chris.
I know.
I'm a little bit ahead, but like I really
But
like
I
how
think
this
you will.
episode ends, right before the spooky stuff starts to happen.
Where are you now?
Like, yeah,
I'm at the sort of middle point of the staircase, but the stairs have been destroyed from here on up.
Okay, hang on.
There's a door here. It seems to be the only way I can go.
Wait,
the word of the day is
a
small.
door.
Yeah, the actual door is gone though. I'm gonna stay out here though. It's not too cold tonight and winds died down.
Is there a sign above the door?
Yeah.
This is lifted
A
directly
lot of
from the
it's
Paris
covered in ice, but
catacombs.
there's definitely writing there.
The
What does it say?
thing above the door.
Oh, yeah.
Let me see. R something.
But I had to be very like, it's not French. It's not French above the door. It's just
Something. Mort.
Oh. Wow.
What is it supposed to say?
Roughly translated, stop, for this is the land of the dead.
I think the catacombs is beware. Rather
You're
than
outside the tomb.
Yeah.
Did you know
Tomb.
that there is way more
Yeah.
to the Paris Underground than the catacombs, and there is an entire city underneath
in
Paris,
there?
like one for one, that
I
Yeah.
people
think
aren't
it's
allowed
better if
into.
you
Yeah.
see for
And
yourself.
they
Are you
used to have
serious?
mushroom farmers
Yeah.
down there in the
Trust me on
1700s, but then a street called the Devil's
Okay.
Street collapsed into
going
it, so
to
they
be
made it
fine.
illegal.
So?
But there are still urban explorers who go down there, and there are
Yeah.
like bunk beds and stuff carved into the stone, and there's like
Not really.
buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
Why?
Like there's something like
Reason?
when you walk through the
I just
catacombs, you're walking
wanted
like
to
a
keep
tiny
talking.
like.
Don't you have to
Like,
pay
oh, we
for
could
the
talk about the
fun?
catacombs for a very long time.
This one
But yeah,
says
I like how
secret.
this episode ends
Really?
with
Yeah.
Kiri
don't
just
mind
being
talking
like,
a
"Are
bit
you still
longer."
free? I wanted to chat a bit more."
Me neither.
And then it just goes out from there. Like I just thought it was a nice way to end an episode. But yes, we get to go into the tomb now, which is basically I get to talk about how cool the Paris catacombs are because I loved going to the catacombs in Paris. It was an incredible experience, and in a way I can't quite describe because I don't. It feels weird to say it was like. It feels weird to say it was an amazing time when it was quite unsettling and not frightening, but like tomb. Yeah, just kind of. I think it was more. What was fascinating about it was seeing how I reacted to it, and like how you process going. Because you do after a while you just stop seeing the bones, all the bones stacked up. You just start seeing them as architecture. But also like realizing that like in particular in the catacombs, it's just like, you know, these people didn't all die of the same thing. They didn't all die at the same time. This was just a certain amount of the population that died over a certain amount of time, and they needed somewhere to put them, and they had all these tunnels, so they put them here. I think if you ever get a chance, because have you been to the catacombs?
Yeah, I have.
Like I think it's something that like if you get a chance, like do it. Like we had to wait in a queue for a very long time on a Sunday, but like,
But for me, so I've done some archaeology. I freaking love a skeleton. I love a skeleton. Skeletons are great. Skeletons don't bother me. I am deeply claustrophobic. So for me, it was kind of hard to. interact much with the kind of death bodies side of it because I was so conscious of the underground narrow walls side of it, which is like it kind of mixed up in my head in a weird way. But I do have a thing which is like largely just due to, I guess, content warning Catholic trauma. Like, but I was raised with this very deep, and it's one version of Catholicism, not representative of all Christianity by any means, but one version of Catholicism which is very strict about like the wholeness of the body, and the wholeness of the body after death, and how important it is and how sacred it is to like leave a body as it is and leave it whole. And so for me, I love death and I love skeletons, but there is something deeply unsettling in the tower about the idea of bodies which have not been given, almost like part of me can never divorce myself from the idea of like the dignity of being allowed to be like, to remain whole in some way or remain together and to be kind of mixed in. And I think especially with the tower, because of the way that it's like, it's specifically the workers, you know, like I don't imagine the king is down there mixed in with all the other bones.
No.
And there's something with that, therefore, that becomes a conversation about the dehumanization of workers and of workers' bodies and the dismemberment of workers' bodies for the sake of construction, which, goes into weird places. Yeah.
Again, hashtag Catholic trauma.
Hashtag.
I think it was one of those, particularly with the tomb, was like... So I remember having a conversation with Pello about this because Pello is Christian, and we kind of had this chat about whether or not the tower is anti-religion, and I don't think it is. I think it's anti-church. If that
there
makes
is
sense.
a very cool strand of theology which I do need to just have an intermission for the two people hanging out with us. It's tangent on religion. There's a school of theology called Liberation Theology, which was started by black feminists and Latin American priests in the late 20th century. And it's specifically a school of Christian theological thought, but it's really, really cool. And I think it taps in a lot to what the tower talks about, which is liberation theology. The idea is, by the Bible, by the scripture, Jesus is killed by empire, by the Roman Empire, because of imperialism, because of the threat that Jesus poses to imperialism within the text that is the Bible. Therefore, you cannot be Christian and in support of empire, whether that empire is capitalism, whether that empire is America, whether that empire is Britain. You cannot be both pro-imperialist and Christian. And so, as I said, liberation theology is founded by black feminists, it's founded by Latin American priests. It was actually used to actually incite an entire successful revolution in like a country in Latin America, to the point that they literally removed a dictator, instituted a democracy, no corruption, like now there's a democracy. It's fucking great. Genuinely, just Google liberation theology. It's wild. There's a bunch of priests, like it's the same school of thought that has like priests going out and taking sledgehammers to anti-homeless measures because they're like, I cannot support empire and be Christian.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the whole reason that liberation theology emerged was because historically there have been branches of the Christian church that have been tied very deeply into imperialism. I say as a medievalist, you know, like this is an incontrovertible truth. And for me, in terms of the tower, like I feel like what the tower is not anti-religion, but it is anti-imperialist religion, or anti the imperialist perversion of religion into a tool of, like, you know, a propaganda, a tool of empire. I'm kind of repeating myself, but anti-religion being turned into a tool of empire. And that's the thing that the tower calls out, is the tower is like, you know, you started with this seed of faith and then you took it into a place that became obscene in its cruelty. I
think that was, because I think something that I ended up doing as part of the tower and making the tower was reading up about history. It's why, like, when I in the press pack where I kind of said, well, these are the books I read, there's some odd ones, like, you know, a short history of Germany, and it's just like, you know, that seems, or like there's one that's just called France, and it's just like, it's interesting looking at an entire country's history and what shaped that. And I think a lot of the sort of early, it's something that it's something we discuss more in the Tower Part 3. But it's interesting seeing how so much of that ties back to religion and this idea of, divine right of kings and things. And I think that's something I've always been interested in. And I think there was an element of that because, I studied English at university and was taught lots of Shakespeare and lots of deep readings of Shakespeare, and how a lot of them are, the wrong king is on the throne, and because of that, we have bad weather all the time, and all our harvests are terrible. That's an idea that's been interesting, where it's just something is out of sync with nature, therefore bad things are happening. And I think that was something that I kind of wanted to explore as well with this. How successful that's been, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But does the tower have an economic model? It did. It didn't work. That's an interesting discussion. Is the tower just one really big dungeon?
Okay, so now what you need to do...
It's a crossover episode.
Yeah, it's a Halloween crossover episode of Dungeon Economic Model, but the tower.
Do they take place in the same universe? That's an interesting question.
Oh, no.
The Tin Can Audio Extended Universe. It's not... They're not. I refuse to make... No, I'm not.
I know we've gone lighter, but I do like what Ms. Shiria said about the workers on the Great Wall of China who are buried along and even in the wall itself. I mean, it's the thing. It is the thing, like you say, that happens throughout history, but just constantly being conscious of but these days there's so many people, you don't really walk anywhere without walking on people's bones. Yeah,
and I think that was because I'm. I like to think I'm a bit of a history nerd. I probably don't know enough, but I walking into places, walking into castles and walking into the catacombs, there's that sort of feeling of you do feel the history a little bit, and I think that was kind of, or a little bit haunted.
There's quite a cool quantum physics theory thing that I once heard Joe Fisher from Midnight Burger talk about, which is there's this idea that we perceive time in a linear fashion because of our brains and because we exist in the dimensions that we exist in. But there's a quantum physics theory that is essentially that all time and space happen simultaneously.
Yeah.
And we organize them into order.
Yeah.
But if you take that idea, that means that every person who has ever or will ever live is all around us all the time because we're all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And I like to think about that if I'm going into a castle or something and being everyone who's ever been here has always been here. And then also the idea that 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, there was someone standing in this castle going, wow, it's so old. I wonder who lived here. There's a wonderful Anglo-Saxon poem called The Ruin, which was written in the 900s. And it's a poem about going into the ruins of a Roman fort and being I imagine people must have had parties here. They must have laughed like I do. They must have had food like I do and friends and lovers. How strange it is to walk into this ruined building and think, and what I find even more beautiful about that is that the poem, The Ruin, the manuscript is damaged. So now when I look at the poem, I can't read the whole poem, and it's someone who's reflecting on a building that isn't whole, that they're trying to imagine what it must be. And there's just a lovely continuity to that. But yeah.
That's wonderful. I love that. It's fantastic. The Tower Part 3, Divine Right 2, Electric Boogaloo. Kiri comes across the door several dozen levels up and some guy with a bathrobe and a cup of tea walks out. It's just me. Hello, Kiri.
And a cat.
And a cat. Oh, man. Okay. The Tomb Part 1. Where I try and make the Temple of Time music from Ocarina of Time. That's all this is.
When the tower was being built, it became so colossal it took workers a full 2 months to reach the top. They would set off with carts full of supplies, sometimes go by cattle to keep them fed on the long journey up.
So this comes from Tower of Babylon by Ted Chiang, where it talks a lot about these workers going up the Tower of Babylon.
Builders
in that
were
case.
promised generous salaries,
and how that would work economically, and the kind of folklore that would spring up around building such a thing. And that was where a lot of this lore stuff came from. Early lore stuff came from.
Sending both them and their families into debt. once their loved ones had begun their work, many families tried to claim the earnings, as the builders had instructed them to do, but were told only the worker on the tower could withdraw them upon their return. Many workers spoke of staying on the tower longer than their contracted time in order to ensure the income for their families, believing it would make up for the time it would take to return home. They had no idea that as they laid bricks at the top of the world, the base of the tower, their loved ones sank into poverty. Due to the high death rate amongst the tower builders, it is estimated the church only ended up paying out 30% of the wages to the workers, as it was impossible for workers to be confirmed dead. There was no compensation for their families.
I think there was a sort of slightly buried idea there in terms of veterans care as well, but I think it got lost.
It also makes me think about... Oh, hang on. I did say I had a cold. Makes me think about all the
Hello?
bodies on top of Everest.
Yeah.
They put a phone in the tube.
Yeah.
Apparently there's a fire
there's a bit in
too.
Tower of
Clearly
Babylon where it
someone
talks
has the
about
same idea as
how
me.
How are you holding up?
a trowel
Just
becomes more valuable than a person's life. Because if a trowel falls off, a person can't earn money. Whereas if a person falls off, somebody gets an extra
They
trowel.
stack the arms and,
Which is-
like
it's
up
that
into
kind
neat
of-
rows with
that
the
kind of
skulls
thing.
in the middle and on the top. Some of the skulls face you, some
Back
of them
during the
don't,
Cold
and for
Rush
some
era, Chinese
reason,
gold
the ones
miners
that
who came
aren't
to New
looking
Zealand
at
would
you are
sometimes
the
make
more
homes in
unsettling
and out of
skulls.
natural rock formations on the
Which
side
is
of the
a sentence
mountains,
I never thought I'd have
and they're
to
still
say.
there today. That's really cool. I
Yeah.
really like that.
It says there were a lot
It's
of bodies
worth
in the
saying
tomb,
as
but I
well-
didn't realise.
I've spent what feels like days
With Katrina's performance in
trying to
particular,
navigate
when
a maze
I
out
went to
of
visit the catacombs,
skeleton.
Katrina was there with me, so we
Second
were both
worst
pulling
thing
from
is
the
that
same
I
place
realised
when it came to this
someone had
episode.
to build
Because
this
Katrina did
maze,
not
and
like being in the
they built it
catacombs.
with a
Like, didn't
sense of
enjoy
humour.
it one bit.
Some of the skulls face the direction you're supposed to go. I came to a dead end. The skulls had been arranged on the wall into a giant X symbol.
That's in the catacombs. Somebody has done that.
But
Twisted
someone
sense of
had
humour.
to build this, and I guess they had to do something to make the task less morbid.
That's the second worst thing.
The worst thing is, after I'd been walking the maze for so long, I stopped seeing the bones. I just saw walls.
It's weird. This is the episode that people are always asking, or always talking to me
Noticing the fact that I
about.
was
That they kind of put out as like
surrounded
this is
by
their
the
favorite
remains
episode of like
Thousands
season one,
of people
which I always think is
who
really
I
strange because
guarantee
it's such
did
an odd
not
one
want to be here.
compared to the rest
Kiri,
of the
they've
series.
been dead for hundreds of years.
it's very
I doubt they
vivid and it's
care
very
much where
spooky.
they are
They
now.
died up
And
here,
you
Chris,
do-
building this.
No matter
stupid
how
tower for a
peaceful or
king who wants the
kind your
universe,
art is,
and
it
this
does tend to
was
be
all
spooky.
the thanks they got. Taken apart, piece by piece, and stacked. They have to live here forever, on display.
Kiri, it's okay. Take a breath.
Oh, his bleed. Oh, I hate that. Mike bleed.
Where are you now?
Oh, not anymore. It's gone now. We're good. We're fine.
The maze came out on this little platform over a massive pit. There's a bridge going across it, and I think the exit's on the other side.
What's down the pit?
I figured you'd know.
The books didn't say anything about the maze of bones. I think there are still some unknowns about the tower.
I think it goes all the way down to the
Skeleton
bottom.
party on Tower Mountain.
I didn't realise the tower was so
That's the name of the
hollow
next
and-
Lo-Fi remix EP.
Do you have something you can
Rooney,
throw
I
down
need
it?
you to listen to the song
I might.
Giant Spider Mountain. You will find it where all good streaming services are. Just listen to that song. Enjoy it.
You brought a flare?
Take it with you into your life.
Where the hell did you get a flare from?
A
Oh, yeah,
climbing
it's-
trip, maybe.
I needed
Maybe?
Kira to have a flare. I know you can get flares when you go
flare,
on
okay?
paintball
Okay.
trips. Like, that's where that came from.
Throw it down the pit.
2 seconds.
This bit is.
What is it?
So, I need to, like, sound effects for bones are surprisingly
What?
difficult to do. To find, like, something that sounds actually like it.
Full of
I ended up using Lego.
Oh no!
Like, pile of Lego bricks. Yeah.
It sounds like terracotta.
Kiri,
Yeah. Well, it's just a pile of Lego and just dropped something into it.
God.
Like,
I didn't think there could be more skeletons.
I'm not saying anymore.
I think I've had enough reality for one
Night
day.
on Bones Mountain.
sounds like it.
Oh, what was it?
Kiri?
Pello described the tomb as the Bone Zone when we were recording. It was one of the R&D recordings. He went, "Let's go to the Bone Zone."
Torches in the night.
It is. This is also very Dark
They were
Souls.
lit.
Yes, I think
Frickin'
this
drop a
Someone has
flare
been
into an
through here
infinite
before
tunnel
me.
of bones.
Recently too.
Yeah, yeah.
Kiri, I think you're over.
It's pretty metal now you mention it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris? Chris? Chris?
What are you doing?
Chris? Is that...
What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
What is this?
You shouldn't be here.
What?
You shouldn't be
Forgot
here.
about that line, Jesus.
I shouldn't be here?
You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here.
Why?
What are you doing? You shouldn't be here. What are you doing? You shouldn't be here. What are you doing? You shouldn't be here.
Obviously, Bones make a xylophone sound.
It is scary. Thank you. I was feeling quite scared. The window is like completely dark outside. There are buildings and stuff, but I was genuinely. I had a minute there where I was like, "Oh, I'm quite spooked."
I had something to say about this. Yes, it's very weird listening to part one. I kind of mentioned this when we were on episode 3, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize the voicemail was this early on." Like, it's very weird because in my brain there's a very particular idea of what the structure of a Tower series is, and this is
Hello?
different from that, which is quite
Kiri!
strange
Thank
to me now,
goodness.
which is very
You're
very
not
weird
dead.
listening back to it.
No, I guess not.
Where are you now?
I'm in the tomb.
Oh,
Oh,
What?
nothing. Just something to do with wires being a bit faulty in there.
just got very good delivery.
That would explain.
It's just-
Okay, I was on the phone and the call cut out.
Yes, that was me. Sorry. When I start testing, all calls are cut off.
Okay. Can I ask you something?
Depends what it is, I
A
suppose.
couple of times
Yeah,
something's
I only realise now how
trying to talk
rude
to
that
me.
is.
Something.
No. I get it. Like, if Ike's working on the tower, the kind of batshit things that people like, if anyone else has ever spoken to him, then the kind of things that people must ask. He's in customer service. Like, if you're working as someone who has worked in a call center, if someone calls me up with just a generic inquiry and it's like, hey, can I just like ask something of you? I'm gonna be like, what exactly is it that you want? Like, I need some boundaries here. We need parameters. I need a safe word. We need to just establish at the start what you can ask of me.
No, that's fair enough.
them
That is
unhappily, so.
fair enough.
That neither explains what happens or
It's
makes
nothing.
me feel any better.
Maybe it is a feedback loop. I don't know. I'll have a check on the line when I run the test.
Hello?
Hey.
It's a big chord to end on. Oh, and it wibbles as well.
Okay.
Turning up that mod wheel. Oh, wonderful. And then we go into... So I still think the last episode of part 1 is the best thing I've made. Like, is the best kind of overall thing that I've made as a piece of audio drama.
Oh, them's fighting words.
It's just like it's the one that if people are like, if I had to pick, I'm part of, like, the bit I always use in like sound design workshops, or if people are asking me to have like a demonstration of like what my stuff sounds like, I send them the end of this episode of the next episode, because I think it's the thing that I'm kind of the most proud of in terms of how it all works, and like it sounds as big as I want it to sound, and it all comes together and it all works, and the rhythm's good and everything. Like episode 1 is phenomenal. Yeah, like the episode 1, like, is that, well, like I like episode 1. I think episode 1 is a very good opening episode, but like, yeah, yeah, the door opening and the tower waking up, like that sequence I'm very, very proud of, and I think is still hits me as hard as it did when I first kind of edited it. So yeah, we will listen to this episode and then we will take a break because we've been at this for a while now and we have a whole other series still to go to. Yeah, so we'll just get into it. I think this speech is quite a strong one as well. Pello described it as the most Doctor Who thing I've ever written.
A species is not built to survive. We rely too much on our environment.
That's it. I was going for a boss vibe. That's it. I was going for a big
until there is nothing left.
And this music is absolutely me trying to do Great Gig in the Sky. I'm not even ashamed to say that. I wanted to do Great Gig in the Sky. I rediscovered Pink Floyd while making the series.
Oh yeah, that is... No, you're right. Oh my god. There is so much Pink Floyd in this series. How did I never think of that?
Similar fantasies as to its infinite...
Wish You Were Here was huge influence on part one.
I was raised on Wish You Were Here.
Disappear.
And then,
why do I love this show so much?
And then,
testaments to our hubris.
Like if you listen to this piece on its own and then listen to Dark Side of the Moon, it's not even I'm not even trying to hide.
Washing away our monuments.
Megalovania begins in the distance. I'm still yet to write my Megalovania. One day.
The next crossover is Sans Undertale appears on the tower. The tomb is less scary now. Scary in different ways because the Tumblr sexy men are here.
Sans is at the top.
Through everyone who
with a whoopee cushion.
Yeah, just Kiri goes, is that? And then Megalovania starts playing.
It seems our urge to consume and destroy even includes ourselves.
Again, did not mean to write a thing about class consciousness when I started writing this thing.
Again, I have met you.
What is left behind is a grand mausoleum, a monument to the workers who built the tower. It is their home.
Sans at the top of the tower, just punts you off.
History has forgotten them. Time
just doesn't say anything, just
and for whatever my time is worth, I never will.
I need to get a Sans doll or something, don't I? I feel
you really do.
That's one of the many things that are missing. This was deliberately longer than normal. I think that's something that I don't know if I've lost, but I think it's something that I'm much more...
Hello?
Hi.
Because I now work
there.
professionally in podcasting and audio drama, I feel like I have much less
Oh my god.
patience for
Kiri,
letting
how big
things
is this
take
here?
longer than they normally should.
It's
Like I feel like I
stretching
wouldn't
right
do that
across
now.
the
I wouldn't
tower.
let something go on
There's
that
a
long.
column with a platform in the middle.
I think it's like a
taking me
full
all
30
day to
seconds
get
of
here.
phone ringing,
So
which is
I'm gonna
very,
call it
very
till
long.
tomorrow. There's a phone here too, so I can
Yeah.
clear my head a little.
How are you coping?
Just looking straight ahead and not looking down.
Good plan. Good plan.
That's just Pello.
Wait.
Like it's just...
A column?
I wrote that line knowing
Yeah,
exactly
there's
how
like a
Pello would
fun
say it, because nobody would say it like that.
Yes. Well, what means of one.
It's out.
Yeah. Why?
Oh, that's kind of sad.
Yeah? What was it for?
Well,
Just the bit where you get the
when they
piano
were building
version
the
of-
tower, they built a well that they then filled with wood and other fuel to make a flame that would burn for eternity.
That is kind of sad.
It also apparently helped in the later construction as the heat from the fire was funneled
Yeah,
up the
you get
chimney to power machines
Piano version
further
of
up
The Fog
the tower.
Clears.
We have some funny ideas about eternity, don't we?
When things are going good,
How are you
the
coping?
tendency is
How
to
are you
think it'll
coping?
always
How
be
are you
so.
coping?
And that's not true of everyone.
Oh,
That's
I know.
all of Chris's,
But those people don't tend to be in charge.
There's something about
Weird
this
people.
eternity stuff also. It's like
That's true.
it's a really nice thing in Anglo-Saxon poetry that
Do you think I should
I really
like
like her work. It reminds me a lot of all the things that are
Bonfire.
important to me
Yeah.
because I think that's just what it does to people.
I don't know.
For me, that's
Coming
Anglo-Saxon
handy
poetry.
later on. Whatever
But
those machines you talked about are still up there.
the Germanic idea of
Maybe I'll
immortality
need
was
to
people
use
tell
them to
stories about
restart.
you. So you do glorious
I
and
don't know.
ridiculous and brave things now.
They
It doesn't
never
matter
said
if
it
you
would.
die dismembered in battle at
In
16
any
because
case,
people
it'll
remember you
be
forever.
a-
Because people will talk about you and
an
talk about how
act of
amazing you were.
reverence. Out of
And then
respect for
the
dead.
Germanic countries, including England, start getting converted to Christianity. Christianity says, build up your kingdom in heaven. Don't
that
be
makes sense.
glorious and overzealous now in life.
for it.
Don't do stupid things, because one day you'll be rewarded in an eternal life. But for the Germanic peoples, that was this huge gamble, like, because, you know, if you don't do that, then you don't get your immortality of fame, and if the Christian afterlife doesn't exist, then that's it. You've lost it. You'll be forgotten.
Yeah.
There's a poem called The Wanderer, where a writer in the 1000s imagines that, says, okay, fine. So when we get to the end of the world and there's nothing left, and he describes like there's all of the buildings in the world are surrounded by a mighty wall covered in
Anything
carved
moving?
serpents, battered down by blizzards, and there are no more princes, and there are no more warriors, and there are no more poets to sing our names. How then will we be remembered? What
Yeah,
then
well-
happens in the dark?
Something's happening further
And
up the tower.
the end
It
of his
sounds
poem
like
is he
giant-
decides, okay, well, I suppose then I will
Okay.
surrender because my idea of eternity is not as long as I once thought it was.
What do
I
you
love
do?
that, like a length of eternity. But yeah, like this fits. The Awakening, those rototoms are sampled from Time by Pink Floyd. Like,
Really?
yeah, like the person who made the plugin sampled them.
Ike?
What's going on? What are you doing?
It's me doing Great Gig in the Sky.
Too.
Like,
Why? What's happening?
The tower's just lit up. The whole thing. Machines in my office have started beeping and printing off reports. I thought they were all switched off.
Ike, what's going on?
I don't know.
here's the line.
But whatever it is, the tower is awake.
I love that cut with Ike and he sounds flustered for the first time. Yes, I love the sort of cut in. Like, Ike sounds scared. Like, I like that. Like,
And it's that perfect play of like when you're introduced to him and he's in this wondrous place and he's the mundane, but then because he's mundane it makes you feel that he's in control and he's more wondrous and more powerful because he seems so calm. And then to like then invert that at the end of the series and be like, okay, so he made this big thing normal, but now he's gonna make it scary again. Because
yeah. No, I'm really like. I love how this season ends. Because that was the thing. We ended it, and we're just like, we don't know if we're gonna make any more. Like, we don't know if anyone's gonna like this enough to warrant doing. Kiri, this will look terrible on my quarterly job review.
stares into the middle distance in season 3 spoilers.
Yeah, that's season 1. That's season 1. It's still very, very important to me, and it's very strange to listen back because this was made came out in 2019, but we made it in 2018. And yeah, we've talked a little bit about this, but like when we were recording part 3, Katrina was saying it's very weird listening back to part 1 and 2 because my voice has changed in that time. So it's interesting to kind of, as much as like part 3, there's a lot about, this is a teaser, I'm counting it as a teaser, there's a lot about kind of taking stock of the journey so far, and it's interesting to kind of think about the show that way from like behind the microphone as well, in terms of how it's come as a show and how all the people behind it have progressed. But yeah, like it's wonderful that people still like it and people will yeah, it actually took me a really long time to listen to The Tower a second time after I first finished it because there was something almost devastating about it in a way. As weird as it sounds, thank you, that's a really lovely thing to say. Yeah, it hit me really close to the heart, hurt in a good way. Like it's weird to say thank you for about things like that, but it's been wonderful to see such a good such a strong response to it, and from an audience like so many people, which has been wonderful. I know these are very sort of like standard things to say.
No. But no, first of all, don't misrepresent Mysterious in this way. You are, no, thank you. Take the thanks, you deserve it. Yeah, exactly. Like, listen. First of all, your modesty is a deeply admirable thing about you as a person.
Thank you.
But also, you should recognise the fact that your art inspires feeling in people, and that's a beautiful thing. And that people don't say that unless they mean it. Partly because like there are literally so many other things we can all do with our lives than tell you that your stuff has made us feel something if we don't mean it. Like, good lord, there are better things to do with one's time than lie to an indie creator on a stream. Like, oh my goodness, that's just it's improbable. Second, I don't understand how at this point you cannot, and if you don't, then it's my responsibility to fix it as your friend. There is empirical proof that people have felt like an enormous poignance and melancholy to the way that the Tower and the Tower Part 1 like told its story. Like, this is not the first time I've seen someone say something like this. I also feel it. And it's not something I say about every audio drama I listen to, because I think a lot of audio drama isn't doing what the Tower does. And the Tower is very melancholic and bittersweet. It is not necessarily about romance. It's not necessarily about action or mystery or horror. It is about, well, for me, it's about grief and context and trauma and history and life and memory, and those things are not themes that come up very much in podcast drama, and I say that as something of an expert. It's a beautiful thing that inspires a feeling that is quite unique within its landscape.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I guess I probably worded what I was saying wrong, but I think it's just that it's not something I take for granted. Like, because this is a very personal project for me as well, so it's wonderful to put something very personal out there and have such a positive response to it. But thank you. And between the Tower and Malevolent, I'm on the floor with shrimp emotions.
Yeah, it's because shrimp colours. They can see more colours.
Yes.
I feel you. That's me also. Okay. What a mood.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break before we dive into part 2. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sticking about. We're going to run on. This is going to be a long one just because we've still got another whole season to get through. But we hope you stick around. We'll be back in 5 minutes. I'm going to stick on some lo-fi remixes for you. And we'll see you in about 5 minutes. So see you in a bit. Hello, we have returned. First of all, Shrimp Tower now. Excellent work. Oh, my hair is now so long it makes me like I've got like a massive like mutton chop. No. Oh. No, it's still there. Okay.
It's fine. It's bangs.
It's bangs.
It's bangs.
Also, I feel like I need to apologise. So there was a comment. I forgot this was a pre-Panini show. I did not get the reference until Ella like literally just explained it to me while we were off. So yes, it was pre-Panini, and it's worth talking about because part 2, half of it was written pre-Panini, and half of it was written during. And I feel like there's a very definite point where you can tell when that happened. So that very much happened by accident. So yes, part 2. This was a trope I was wanting to use for a very long time, and I'm quite happy with how it came out. I was chatting to Ross McFarlane, who's one of the producers and writers on Folklore.
Such a great show. Listen to it if you haven't already.
Yes, especially since we will have some announcements soon about that.
Ooh.
Halloween-related announcements as well. So even
It's a ghost.
Even more. Ooh, yes, I've got my new glowy ghost boy, which the colours aren't really showing up on the. If I move closer, will that work? No,
The ghost is purple now blue.
it's changing colours. It just looks like a very bright ghost, doesn't it?
Now it's red. I can't believe you can't see it at all. I promise I'm
That's
not lying
really
to you.
annoying. It is changing
Green.
colour, I promise. I have a video on TikTok. Oh yeah, I have TikTok now. That's something that's happened. Yeah, anyway. Enough about my stuff. That's not that kind of stream. The Time Loop Trapped Inside episodes were written during quarantine. Half of them were. The idea came before. The idea became pre-pandemic. That's the thing. Fantasy When You Tower Season 1 and Sci-Fi's When You Tower Season 2. Yeah, well, this was the thing. I kind of wanted to be like, right, we've introduced this idea of a supernatural fantastical element. What can we do with that? And I kind of thought, well, let's play around. And also I wanted to play around with time because I'd read The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli, the copy that I bought when we first met each other.
I was going to say, I remember you getting that book, actually.
Because it'll just come out. And I just went, excuse me, I need to buy this book. And it just kind of changed. Like, we kind of talked a little bit about like how we view time, and that's what the entire book is about. And I'm like, I wanted to play around with that idea. And also the idea that time moves slower if the lower down you are, and so like if you're higher up, you're moving slightly faster in time than people lower down. And it's the same that like if you stand still, time is moving at a different speed from when you're moving, because it's like a relational thing. It's very, very cool and very, very confusing. But there's a wonderful XKCD comic where somebody's like spinning around really, really quickly. And the person's like, what are you doing? And it's like, well, I'm spinning around so quickly that basically it means that time is slowing down, which means I get to spend a little bit more time with you. And I'm like, that's melts. Time is a weird soup. Yes. That was essentially the thesis of this book. I would highly recommend. Also, so there is a particular Star Trek: The Next Generation episode that deals with the time loop. There are like a couple of things that I just abjectly copied. I will be pointing them out because I'm very much just like, I think it works really well, even though I absolutely copied it from a Star Trek episode. All my good ideas I copy from Star Trek episodes.
You are a Trekkie.
I am indeed a Trekkie. I looked up and I've just realised all my Trek stuff is in a different room, so I can't even prove it.
They are. I can prove it. I am testimony. I am giving testimonial. I am sleeping in the room with the Trek stuff. They're a Trekkie. Test them. Ask them Trek questions.
Oh no.
They will know.
Picard again. Yeah, that's true. Which, again, I didn't make that up. I saw that in a museum, at a Star Trek exhibit at a museum in Seattle. I didn't go to Seattle for the Star Trek exhibit. It just happened to be there, I promise. The Picardigan is a real thing. It's a real thing that existed. And
Okay, but like, I don't want to contradict you like on your stream. I know that wasn't why you were in Seattle, but when you've told me about your trip to Seattle, very much the emphasis and the thing you were most excited about was
the Star Trek exhibit. Yeah, which is true. They had. I don't even care. I'm going on a tangent here. They had like the original models that they used in the show. Like they just had them hanging up, and you could go upstairs and see them. They had like the original set from the original series, like the bridge set.
No way.
They also had like really specific stuff, like. So there's an episode where like a chunk of the Enterprise gets like lifted out of it. They had the little chunk. It was just... Anyway, The Tower Part 2 came out in September 2021. It took us a lot longer to kind of rally than I think it kind of, because we were trying to make Middle Below 2, which lockdown. I don't want to say that lockdown like kind of is the reason why we don't have a Middle Below season 2, but like it played a really big part, just because we couldn't get people together and organizing. They had the chunk, but yeah, getting people together for season 2 was really difficult, and by the time we'd worked out how to do it, like it was just things were just bad, and then just as a result we just didn't fully recover from it. So it meant that we just decided we can either keep trying to get this thing made and making ourselves unhappy while making it, or we can just kind of say we've made a good thing and leave it there, which I think was the right decision. It is just a shame that that it had to happen. But one thing we did as a result was The Tower Part 2, which I'm also very, very proud of, and I think it was the right thing to make at the right time, which sounds like a weird thing. Like, I think it says a lot about it was just written at a very strange time, made in a very strange time, and it's interesting now listening to it in comparison with Part 3 as well, and kind of realizing that it does sit on its own in its kind of own little space, which is a weird thing to realize. And that was the thing. I started out by talking about Ross MacFarlane. That was the thing we talked about, was that Part 2 feels very much its own kind of self-contained series, while also linking up with everything. I also really like the music for Part 2. I think the music for Part 2 is probably the strongest soundtrack, which is strange. Which the reason I know this is because I really like it, and I'm like, oh, I think this is the best soundtrack, and it's not getting as many listens, which proves my point, because that always happens. Yeah, so like we did a lot, like there was a lot of stuff with delays and things, which I'll explain. But yeah, I really like Part 2. It's a difficult second album, and I think now that I've made Part 3, I realize how difficult a difficult second album it was. But yeah, let's listen to episode 1. That's called Homesteads.
I'm sure this won't come up later.
It's quite a brief stop on the way up.
Yeah.
That is Roger Best reading the news there.
That's great.
And it is great.
Sounds like you've made a
That's
lot
pretty
of progress
good.
today.
I love the shipping
Where
forecast
are you
reference. And the beeps, you got the pips.
Yeah.
Okay.
The not
hang on.
Greenwich pip.
Oh. If you're where I think you are, you've got an interesting stop coming up. I won't spoil it for you. Okay.
Also, the way this music is designed
Good night,
is so
Kiri.
that you could listen from Part 1 into Part 2, and the music would be seamless because it's the same chord sequence and the same tempo.
There is still no explanation to the sudden spike in activity of the ancient ruin known simply as the Tower. Historians and experts on the structure have been consulting those who work or live nearby, but have so far not found any.
Also, I really wanted to do like an opening where it's like there
Hello?
is something in the background giving you a little bit of plot
What's wrong?
if you want it.
Love a background
I'll be
news
right over.
report. I love a background news report. Show don't tell. Environmental storytelling. We're doing storytelling in audio. We should be able to hear things in the
Hi,
background.
I hope you're okay. I'm sorry I haven't called in a while. I've just been busy.
I really like this opening music, but I
I'm
think
away
it's
from
way
home.
too dramatic for the
Things
tower.
have been
It's a little bit more dramatic than
Very
the tower
strange
normally is.
lately.
Like,
Feels like everything's changing, and all I can do is stand and watch it all happen. Try not to let it wash over me. It's not
Ephem-
a bad
what a wonderful
feeling,
word,
but I
ephemera.
still feel
love it very
Worried.
much.
I hope you're okay, Mum. I hope everything's good where you are. I'll try and come visit when I get back. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling again. I'll try again tomorrow. Speak to you soon. Bye.
It's just a very dramatic kind
I
of.
love it though. I do like this is one of my favorite tracks in all of the tower. And again, just big Spirited Away vibes, big Ghibli vibes.
This is Princess Mononoke. This is
Oh!
where, you know, like the kind of big opening title of
Yes!
Princess Mononoke. That was the influence for this track. I was very much like I listened to it and I went, I want to do that, and then that's where this particular track came from. Is the opening to Princess Mononoke,
That is so cool.
which is one of my favorite. Like I love that film so much.
It's my favorite.
Like, oh
My favorite Ghibli. That's my Ghibli. It's Princess Mononoke.
yeah, oh, melts me every time.
Yeah, me too.
And they've still got that very quietly in the background. So it all links together still. It's still.
It always feels like a little heartbeat. That
Yeah.
little motif.
Yeah. It's also really lovely. There's just a lot you can do with that, which I like.
Hello?
Hey, it's me.
Oh, it's a little early for you to call, isn't it?
Is it?
I mean, it's still okay. It's just usually it's 2 a.m. or something, not 11 a.m. Wow, slept in again.
So,
Well, this
like,
is a special occasion.
Yeah?
I've been re-listening to the show for reasons.
You know when
but
you
like,
said I had an interesting stop
I
coming
don't
up?
think you need to
and
be
you-
secret about the fact that it's been
Spoiler.
fantastic. I think we all know
Yeah,
about Tower
well,
Season 3 at this point. I don't think that needs to be
Did you,
obscured.
by any chance, mean what looks
So,
like a
yeah,
small
that's-
village built into the side of the tower?
So you're there?
yeah,
No.
like
I'm about to be, though.
in the story, what's happening in the story here?
Sweeney Todd is right. Sorry, they're calling
looks
you
like
out.
it's
They're
gone
right.
straight out
Hello,
of the
Sweeney
tower.
Todd. Hi, sorry. Welcome to the stream.
They're all fairly identical looking clay boxes all lined up.
But like in the
Very-
story of this, Chris gets out of bed and just walks over to the desk where his notes
Geometric.
and the book are, and immediately is just like, okay, here we go, we're doing the thing.
Anything I need to
Straight
look
away.
out
I love that.
I don't think so.
for. No tombs or crypts or anything.
I mean, there's not really anything in the book. Just that it's a type of settlement known as homesteads. That it exists and what it was there for.
So
It was a pit stop for workers climbing up the tower.
what this is based on
Most of the
is
houses were
the
temporary
house
accommodation.
steads you get
Only
on
about a
Hadrian's
dozen
Wall.
families
Oh,
actually
cool.
So
lived
it's like
it.
basically where
How
Chris's
did they
ride or
get
die. like,
There should be some fields to the west.
but yeah, like I
No, east
um.
of the homesteads. They dug deep
That's
pits
what they
that
look
were
like
then filled
to me.
with
That's
soil.
what this settlement looks like.
There were rainwater
Um,
collectors on the roofs of each building.
Just these
and
kind
another
of places
pit
that appear
next
as
to the
certain
fields to act as a
spaces
reservoir.
where, you know,
They
troops
also
and their
had a
families all
separate route
lived.
down to the surface for delivery wagons to
Except,
come
you know,
and go.
vertical, whereas Hadrian's Wall is horizontal.
They really did think
There's
of everything.
imagine, I can't remember the name of it, but in China there are monasteries that built into the sides of the cliff.
Yes.
And I always think
yeah.
of them as well when I
Yeah.
think of homesteads.
Oh, yes.
How's the climb?
Oh. Sorry, I just really love
So
stuff like that.
strange.
Great.
Ever since I lit the beacon, I've been hearing noises from within the tower. Giant booming sounds.
Yes.
The
You
sound
know
of
what this
giant
reminds me
heart
of? And I
machines.
assume,
There's been
I think the
vibrations under
timing's
my
wrong,
feet, almost like
but Archive 81 Season 3,
almost like it's alive.
which I don't think you'd listened to by this point.
No.
But what it reminds me of is one of the greatest episodes of Audio Drama of all time,
this
season
point,
3,
I
episode
wouldn't
6,
rule it
exists
out.
in the place you're currently occupying,
Yeah.
where the ship that they're on are the Irons.
What are you up to
She has
today?
lungs and you hear her breathing.
Oh, I love that.
And the way that the tower also
Nothing,
has like
really?
organs. It
What if
almost
it's fine,
feels like,
so
and once
I
Kiri's
guess
woken it up,
wash,
yeah, like
eat, read.
Rooney,
Off to work.
that's the mountain whales. But I
Sounds
think
like
that is
nothing.
like that is what I love. Like
Well, if you compare
the
it
tower
to
is like a
exploring an ancient
leviathan,
settlement built
like and
into
it's
an
alive
infinite
and
tower,
it
it's
breathes and it
comparatively
heaves.
small.
And,
It's not infinite.
I love like
I
like
don't think.
this is the I think second time we've done a stream together, and I love how it just becomes this
Okay.
space for celebrating
I'm going
audio
to go
drama and
explore an
like
ancient
indie audio
abandoned
drama. I love
settlement.
this.
audio drama.
It is abandoned.
The tower
right?
always has fun organ
I hope
parts.
so.
Wow, very good. It's a callback.
Call you
And
tonight.
sky whales are a good trope.
I hope so.
Thanks, Chris.
Good luck.
So
Thank you.
I don't know if nobody's kind of told me about this, so I'm going to explain the thing that we tried to do with this series that I don't think we managed to do. I think nobody picked up on it because I think we were slightly too subtle about it. So the idea here is that Kiri is walking through the town knocking on doors, and when she's in buildings going to sleep, you hear somebody knock on the door of the buildings. It's this idea that like there are other introducing this idea that there are other timelines kind of smooshing together and overlapping and
Can't
things.
go that way.
But I think the sound effect is too quiet, so you don't pick up on it.
knocked you down.
So as in there's like other knocking on other buildings.
The doors are
Yeah.
still
Oh, that's so
here.
spooky.
Yeah,
I don't think we'd
I
lasted
mean,
that long.
I don't think it quite lands, which
be
is fine.
cool.
Like, but yeah, quite.
Something. Oh. I guess I should have knocked.
So a
Mushroom.
lot of this scene, I think the next one, is actually recycled from another
A f-
series,
phone
a series I wrote
here?
years ago before the tower that ended up becoming
I mean,
the tower.
I guess there's a
The main character was
fireplace.
called Kiri, and it was
Makes a nice change, I suppose.
it was the whole every episode was this basically. It was like the character would go into an empty building and have a conversation with it, like
Hey,
light a fire,
what's this?
lie down, and then like it would be this really sort of slow story about like what's happened to the world and what they're running from and things. She knocks on doors and then she'll knock again.
Hello?
Kiri!
Tower thumping.
That was kind of scary good timing.
Yeah?
Yeah, I literally got
Mark Galley's
got to the
trademarked
phone
Kiri's.
and lit the fire.
Gary.
Where are you now?
I'm at Homesteads.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Oh yeah,
I
this,
just found a
this is my
backpack
favourite.
here.
just found a backpack.
Is it ticking?
Just
Modern. It's in pretty good shape and it looks like it hasn't been here very long.
oh,
It's full of food.
Mark loves that
Freeze-dried
line.
packets,
Like that. I think that's
energy
Mark's
bars.
favourite line of the whole series is asking, "Is it ticking?" Like,
Look,
you see
Kiri,
something
if
that
it's
doesn't
in one
look
of the
right,
houses, it's been pretty
say nothing and drink to
sheltered.
forget.
No, you're right.
Which is a
sorry.
Night Vale joke also.
if you see
Little
something that doesn't look
unsettling
right,
around
check if
here.
it's ticking.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. It's a very strange place to be.
I can imagine.
You know what I also
How are
like
things where
about
you
the
are?
if it's ticking thing though,
Hard
not to be
to
like
say.
thick deep, but
Machines are
I
still
like
beeping
the
and making
joke
noise, but
about the
nobody's
kamubi,
told me
but I also
anything.
like the fact
Have
that
you
where
seen
we're
anyone?
about to go, ticking clocks is like a kind of
Still
it's kind of
just
like a
me
whole
here.
thing. It's a whole thing.
Tower
It's a good
started
point,
moving
actually. I
again
never
and
thought
no
about
one
it. That
told
does
you what
actually
to
link
do.
up later on.
Yeah.
Well, no.
I like it
There's
when
a
I love it when I
manual that wasn't
accidentally
here
do a good
before.
writing.
Somebody left it, I think. I should probably read it. Anyway, I'm glad to hear you're doing okay.
It's all related.
Every time I call you,
apparently.
it takes a little bit longer for you to pick up.
How much further do I need to go?
Let's just say a long way.
I refuse to. I
Okay.
refuse to specifically talk about how long and how high,
Okay,
or how far.
I'm going to test the
like-
rest of these phones. Now that the tower's lit up, people might start climbing it again.
Really?
So
I have no
optimistic.
idea.
I know. I know.
In any case,
I know.
I don't think they'll be catching up with you anytime soon. You gonna be okay?
Yeah. I have food. More food now.
Just found
I
a
have
bag full
fire.
of
I
Kendall
have a
mint
sleeping
cake.
bag. I'm all set.
Okay. Good night, Kiri.
I think another
Good
thing I
night.
wanted to do is also like have Kiri more on her own, especially like the sequence of like taking out a sleeping bag and getting in and sleeping, like actually seeing that part of the process, that part of the journey. I thought would be interesting. which turns out is quite difficult to do in sound.
The person you were
Some other sound comes back and just goes, "What? Somebody just stole my
They'll
backpack."
be at work.
It's just a different Kiri.
Well, I was gonna say with the other
Different
Kiri's
time.
knocking the doors, it's
Different
like
time,
Kiri
man.
being like,
Is this where you hear it? Am I? That's a sleeping bag. Okay.
I mean, I'm definitely listening out for the knocks now.
Yeah.
If you hear a knock, say it in the chat.
Okay. Hang on.
Between us, we'll catch it.
There. That was the sound. But I think it's too quiet, and I think unless you're listening on like proper headphones, you don't hear it. So I think that was just a thing that just didn't land. I'm hoping by talking about it on stream, more people will notice.
Spread the word. You've been
Hello.
given a mission.
Hey, it's me.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm at the other side of the homesteads.
How was it?
Unnerving.
I can imagine.
It's just eerie being in somewhere empty that used to be so full. This was home to some people.
Speaking
and
of
now
sleeping
it's
bag
just
foley, I'm still
snowy
thinking
ruin.
about how you tweeted about the foley you did for the Amelia project.
I
Yes,
found a backpack.
yes,
What?
Kovslovsky in the body
Backpack
bag.
in one of the houses. It had quite a bit
They were
of
like,
food in it.
"Can you have the sound of somebody carrying a
And
body
you
in a body
weren't
bag?"
creeped
I
out
don't.
by that?
How? So I threw a load of
But then I
towels in
thought
a
that it was in
sleeping
a house
bag
and it's been pretty sheltered.
and just bashed it off
Still, though.
with tables and
Yeah.
rolled around.
I know.
I got in as
I'm
well
trying
and
not to
rolled
think
around
about
at
it
one
too hard.
point, like just
Where are you now?
There
Like,
are
honestly,
two
so-
doors.
if you ever,
The other one is.
if you
This
ever,
means that Kozlovsky's size of build is your
And
size
there's
of
a fight
build.
between them.
yeah, which is
Someday,
canonically not true.
you should enter
Um,
with courage.
Like whenever you hear in any
That's
Tin
what
Can
it
audio
says.
thing or anything I've
Design.
edited or sound designed, and you hear like coat
the
noises,
doors go?
that's literally me wearing a coat,
It
standing in front of the microphone, going.
Doesn't say.
What do you mean it doesn't say?
I still do that. I've been doing this job for like 6 years now.
It's a
I
history
still
book
do
on a
that.
map.
I want the black and white
Sorry.
comedy silent film of a sound designer doing the sound effects that has
Sorry,
no
Nobby.
sound. So we just see you doing the things.
Kiri, I wanted to
Kozlovsky is
ask you
also
something.
just very small.
Sure.
There's been a lot of press
all
around
smoke
the
and
tower
mirrors.
recently.
The canon
You
description,
live
smoke and mirrors. The
People
reality.
have heard noises and lights. I can see them from here. Nobody's been able to figure out why yet.
Amelia Project Alternative Universe where
I
everything's the
guess
same,
I
but
wanted
Kovslovsky's
to ask
just
if
small
you wanted
now.
me to
Yeah, they come in and they're just like, "Oh,
someone
he's not heavy at all."
Tell someone what?
that you're on the tower.
You can be just like wooden overcoat, small but incredibly dense.
I don't know. Never really thought about it.
Oh, it's been
Whether I
so
want
long
people
since I've
to
listened to
know I'm here.
Overcoats.
Does
Oh,
your
I
mum know?
need to listen again.
No. She thinks I'm away on a trip somewhere.
That's not entirely untrue.
Exactly.
Okay, so
Nobody knows why.
here's
As far as the news says.
it's like lifting a sleeping
Why
bag
hasn't
full of
anyone asked
towels.
Ike?
Who?
Ike.
So here is something
Test the
that
phones to make sure they're still working.
was good at the
Why?
time, but has
In
absolutely
case
made
someone needs
writing
them,
part 3 very difficult.
Like me.
Is we had to spend a lot of time
He
trying to
works
work
on the
out which
tower.
bits of information
Yeah. He tests the phones every night. Sometimes I talk to him.
will be remembered because of the time loop
Theory.
thing. Like I had to go through and actually make a list of here are
Okay.
the things that Chris will remember from part
I
2.
don't know any more.
Here are
than
the things that
what
were
I hear
mentioned
on
in
the
part 2,
radio,
but Chris has forgotten
as
about
anyone
because
said-
time loop. Like,
nobody works on the tower.
yeah.
Not anymore.
It's why they usually happen in one
What are you
episode of a
saying?
series rather than a whole
I-
series.
Don't know. I'm just. Never mind.
Okay. I'm going to go through the door.
Okay. Call me the next phone you get to, just so I know you're safe.
Will do.
Oh yeah,
By
this
the way,
theme
I tried calling
also
you
has
last night and you
counter
didn't pick
melodies,
up.
which was new for me at the
Went
time.
out after work.
Never done counter
Ended
melodies
up staying
before.
out later than I thought.
Everything okay?
Say, look at
Yeah.
me, I'm back.
It doesn't matter. We can talk about it later.
What I
Okay.
like about that joke is
Good night, Kiri.
you were back, but also back to back.
yeah, like that was us. That was our reintroduction into part 2. Like, I think it's interesting compare, like, I think this is probably only like the second time I've listened to part 1 and 2 like together. So it's interesting to compare first episodes, because I think it still introduces things, but it introduces things more as a structure, I think. And I think the tricky thing was trying to set something up and not give away that it was going to be, not because the gimmick, but like the framing of part 2 didn't appear until the second episode.
Yeah, well, what's quite interesting, I think, is that part 1 moves much faster than part 2.
Oh yeah.
Part 2 slows way down.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of time and storytelling, like, there's a lot of people who write about how time in audio and audio drama is very flexible and very powerful in a way that it isn't as effectively in visual mediums. Just because of the way that, like, we perceive reality and time passing. It's a lot easier to cheat large volumes of time in audio.
Yes.
He was talking about, like, relativism and time and perspective and stuff. And I do feel like when you get to season 2, time just dilates.
Yes.
But what that does is it gives the whole tower this sense of scale, because you needed kind of the acceleration in season 1, because then when you slow down, it's like, oh, but this is so big now because she was moving so quickly before, and now it's just like, feels like it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger because it's taking so long, and that feels so long. And I think that really helps give it a sense of vastness.
Well, yeah, that was the other thing with part 2. I definitely wanted to, like, throw up a wall. Yeah, because, like, Kiri was bounding up the tower in part 1, whereas, like, yeah, with this I just went, right, I want to put something in. And again, that kind of came from the supernatural element as well. It's like, I want to put something in the way that actively... Because, you know, with part 1, you've got the weather getting in the way, but it's like, no, I want the tower actively doing something to impede progress.
I like that you and the tower wanted to put up a wall.
It's like, look, it's what I wanted, and they agreed. Okay,
Yeah.
like
You had a meeting. There was a union. They've got a union now. It's taken about 1,000 years, but these days,
if they had a different opinion, they could have voiced it at the meeting. But they all agreed.
it was all minuted. Janice kept very good notes.
Sentient architecture is also a good trope, and also I feel like it ties into the tomb. You know, this idea that you've got all you know, all these skeletons and all these bodies in the tower. Like, it is a haunted place, and I kind of wanted to make more of that, especially with the idea of going into buildings where, like, people used to live, and really kind of having these. I think there's a line being like, this used to be home to some people, and now it's empty.
Do you know, I have a question.
Yes.
Since I have you, which is like what I always found interesting was the choice of Homestead specifically being where we get stuck, because it's such a cozy and reassuring place, and so why, you know, because it could have been like the tomb, and you could have been stuck in the tomb, or I don't know, other places on the tower, and I'm not going to name any just in case I accidentally spoil season 3 for some reason. But you know, like, why pick specifically such a, like, homely and cozy and villagey place to get stuck in? Was it because of it feels more haunted because people lived here, or was it because of the, like, it's more reminiscent of Kiri's life because this is like a place where people lived day to day, and this is the thing that she's leaving behind? Like,
I think one of the things I wanted to do was kind of explore community buildings, like community spaces. So there's, you know, like this second one's a library, then there's a church, then there's like a clock tower, and I wanted to explore those kinds of spaces, because we have a church in part 1, but it's kind of a much sort of bigger structure, whereas with this I wanted to be like a church as a community thing. And I wanted to kind of explore that. And I think the themes that Kiri talks about in these places are kind of linked to that. Another reason was I like the idea of having like a town where the layout of the town changes every time there's a new town loop. I thought that was kind of fun. I think Silent Hill does something like that at one point.
I was going to say, that's got to be your video game brain kind of coming in a bit.
Is the little bit of a video game. Yeah, there's a point where Kiri actively goes, can't go that way. And I'm like, I think that's a thing that you get in video games where you go up against a door that's closed. But also another thing is one of the games again, we're talking about video games now. One of the games I played that was a big inspiration on part 2 was The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, where the whole framing device is you have 3 days before the world ends, and every time you get to you don't have enough time to do everything, but when you get to the end of the 3rd day, you need to play a song on your ocarina that sends you back in time, and then some things are saved, but some things carry over, but a lot of things don't. So it's all about kind of, and like you start to learn where people are at certain times of day, and then you have to be at a certain time for a certain day, and then kind of solve quests that way. And I really like this idea of like really getting to know a space because you're having to live in that space, over and over and over and over and over again. And also the anime Steins Gate, which has a time loop element into it. I know Steins Gate is very, very old, but you have to go in like completely kind of new, fresh to it, to kind of for it to hit you as hard as it did, because it hit me goddamn hard to the point where I'm still talking about it now. But yeah,
I've got to watch it because you've mentioned it to me more than once, so don't spoil it just for me.
It's very slow to begin with, but once it gets going, oh boy. Like the main gist is like you have these 3 people these 3 nerds who accidentally discover time travel, and things just go south from there.
What?
And it's all about conspiracies and like how, like, what if some of them were true, what if some of them are partially true. Like, it's very good. It's very, very good. Sorry you're not high level enough. There was an element of that in part 2 as well. Some of the best horror is just the house is very mean because it wants to be. I feel like a lot there is an element of that in the Tower Part 2, that there's just this sort of element, as much as there is like you need to let go of some stuff before you can keep going. I think there is also an element of like we're actively impeding your progress.
Mm-hmm. Big Hill House feelings.
Yes, we're actively impeding your process for reasons.
It was a meeting. There were minutes. If you didn't read the minutes, that's on you.
So, the music in this next bit that's coming up, the sort of intros, you've got this kind of repeating thing that's going. That's being run through a delay pedal, so it repeats. But that's the same notes as. It's the same notes, just reordered. Whether that's like conscious for a listener, I don't know. But like, it was very much like using the same notes, but just changing the pattern of them and seeing what possibilities came out of that.
It's interesting because it's not conscious for me because I don't really know anything about music, but it's interesting when you play it because the one that you're using here in part 2, that one. It's almost frustrating because I'm expecting it to go somewhere, and I feel like it's building towards something that I'm expecting, like, you know, an answer to that doesn't come, and so I get that sense of repetition, and I think it's because I'm hearing the notes and I'm expecting it to do the theme that I know. So I hear the notes and I'm like, great, cool, like I've heard that, now it will transition, and it doesn't. And I think that does a really, really good job of kind of reflecting the narrative of the drama in terms of I feel stuck in the music. Yeah.
So the technical thing is, so in music you have question and answer. So, you know, you've got like, and then that's a question, and then could be an answer.
Right.
But one thing you can do as a musician to keep things interesting is keep asking questions and don't answer them. So like, there's that, which is a question that never gets answered. But then there's the other one that plays on top, which starts out like the theme, but it does something different. I don't know. Like that doesn't resolve. That's a circular thing, and if you have that running through a delay pedal as well, the notes start to interact with each other in interesting ways, as you'll hear. And that was very much what I wanted to do with the music in part 2, is have these things where it's this constantly going around and circling but never quite settling on anything. I feel like with part 2 the music is much more integrated into the story in terms of like the way the thing I wanted to experiment with music also lined up with what I wanted to experiment with the story, so they're much more interlinked. And and like when like you'll hear it, but whenever they're talking about time travel, you're hearing that sort of circular melody, with the correct end note on there, but with a delay on it, so it kind of goes on forever and it's constantly repeating. But yeah, this is episode 2, and you'll kind of hear all the things that I'm talking about. I'm very aware that we're listening to it, and like we are talking a lot about the sort of emotional elements and the story elements, but I feel like a lot of my contributions are here's why the music in this bit is cool, which it feels very nerdy.
No, it's so cool.
But yeah, so you'll get it straight away. Yeah. And also you're getting the delays in different ears.
I hope you're okay. I'm sorry, I'm away from home again. Things have been very strange lately. Again, feels like everything's changing. Again, I can watch it over. Again, it's bad, but I'm sorry where you are. I'll try and come visit when I try again. I'm sorry.
Those wonderful delays. I was just about to say, how does this one start? Oh yeah, it starts the same as part 1, but angst. Like...
Hello?
Chris, I'm back at the beginning.
What time is it?
11 a.m.
Oh, wow, I slept in again.
Chris, I'm back at the beginning.
Of the tower?
I think just the fact that Chris does not
the homestead.
get the stakes
Oh,
or the
so you're
tone, does
there.
not sense the tone
I was here
at
yesterday.
all. Like,
What?
there's something
No,
very
you
funny
weren't.
about that.
Yes, I was. I called you. You were just getting out of bed.
We spoke yesterday, but you just said you'd made good progress up the next part of the tower. I remember, because after yeah.
You don't remember speaking to me about
Just
homestead.
that like awkward moment where you're like,
I specifically
yeah,
remember
I shouldn't have
not
said that.
speaking to you about it. I didn't want to spoil the surprise for you.
Chris, I think I've gone back in time.
I personally think Chris handles this very well.
Okay, what?
There's a really upsetting
I
Tumblr
arrived here
post that's
yesterday.
like,
I called you at 11 a.m.
You know,
You slept in. We talked about
I want to be the kind of
homestead,
friend
then I
who would
walked through the
believe
town,
you first
stayed in
time
a
round
house
on the
and
time
called
loop,
you before I
and
went
then
through
someone
the doors.
reblogs it in
Then I
comments.
ended
You
up
said that
right
the
back
last
where I
25 times
started.
too.
Kiri.
You didn't speak to me yesterday, or you don't remember speaking to me yesterday.
So good.
I walked from night straight into morning. The sun went from being on the other side of the tower to this side, the east side. Chris, I think I've come back in time.
Okay, Kiri.
Chris, look at the book. After Homestead, it says there are 2 doors.
Hang
There's
on.
an inscription between them that reads, "Someday you should enter with courage." I know this because I was there yesterday and I couldn't read the writing, and you told me because you read it from the book.
So a lot of the music
That's impossible.
like this,
It's the only way to explain
the
what's
way
going
I had
on.
it was I had a delay, but it
You've
was
gone
like
back
the
in
repeat
time,
was on
but-
was max, so you could
I
have
don't
so
know.
it worked more like a loop pedal, and that it would go on forever.
Why?
I don't know.
Which led to some interesting, especially when we get to the interlude, it led to
I
some interesting
don't know, Chris.
effects and
I said yesterday,
musical ideas.
when we last had this conversation, that ever since I lit the beacon, the towers felt alive. And then it felt like it was urging me on. I mean, maybe this is part of that.
By sending you back?
I don't know. Maybe it's trying to show me something.
I don't know how we're supposed to solve this.
That definitely wasn't
goodbye.
me as a writer there. That was definitely that wasn't
All
me
I
directly
can do
writing.
right now is keep going.
You're going back in.
What else can I do?
Be careful, Kiri.
I will. Chris,
Yeah?
I called you last night, or I guess I call you tonight, and you're not in because you went out after work.
I'll
and
be here tonight.
I mean,
I'll come straight home.
okay. Thank you. I need to talk to someone about this so my head doesn't explode.
Well, I am more than happy to help your head not explode.
I just want to say again,
Very
like
good at it.
You're very kind.
Katrina and Paolo are just incredible actors. Like,
Good luck, Kiri.
incredible voice actors, and
Thank you.
like
You too.
it's something I never want to take for granted just how good they are in this, because they make it sound really natural and easy, and yeah, it's wonderful to work with them.
Wait. This is different from before. You weren't there yesterday. You were. The clock tower's in the same place, though. What is this? Is this the house? The door looks the same, but. So you don't want me going in there today?
Sorry, I'm just
This
that
time.
door sound effect is from Silent Hill. Like I actively took that from. Sorry, that just jutted out and punched me in the face listening back to it. I was like, what? Why did I put that there? Oh.
Oh, it's worth a try.
Whoops.
For a library, you're in pretty good shape.
That's how scary Silent Hill is. You hear a sound effect and you just.
I hope you don't mind me hiding out here for a bit. I mean, you're a library. You usually don't. It almost feels like I'm going through someone's things.
I think this is the equivalent of like
Why isn't
the
there any
start of
dust?
episode 2 of part 1, where it's like it's a monologue and a piece of music that work and I really like it, but it
I wish I understood this.
I feel like it doesn't
It's writing.
go any
hope
further than the
someone
monologue. It doesn't
somewhere
develop
still
later on. It doesn't really come back. As much as I love this piece of music and I love this monologue.
Another fireplace, another phone. Somebody clearly thought of everything.
And that's the delay. Still working on it.
Sorry, but I also just like had a whole thing where it's like, okay, with the tower is extended metaphor for trauma
Yes.
of the
Libraries
fact
are
that
a
there are
collection of
these phones
objects.
and the fires the whole way up. And also it doesn't want you to be here. And how deeply resonant that is, for me at least, of like
They lasted
people
long after
who
you'd gone.
have been through things that they don't want to talk about, but also very badly want someone to ask. And it feels like the
Someone
tower
to ask
is
would
that.
direct
Like the
them
tower is
into
so
that
much pain,
tricky.
and it so badly wants someone to ask, and it so badly wants someone to climb. And also, the whole way up, it's telling you to stop. But it keeps giving you payphones, and it keeps giving you fireplaces, and it keeps giving you places to sit down. And it's such an interesting cognitive dissonance that this building has in its own trauma and in the resolution of its own trauma.
Remember this
Wow.
one. It used to be my favourite. This exact.
This is all going in the boiling pot for part 4. It's like, ooh.
It's like someone loved their copy
'Cause-
as much as I loved mine.
Yeah, by the way, so Kiri finds a
Went to
book.
school once, and I
and-
wrote.
Has her name in the back.
I wrote my name in the back.
For me, it's a very specific Calvin and Hobbes book, because I have a Calvin and Hobbes book that I took into school when I was like 8 years old, and I wrote my name in my class in the back. David Devereaux 3B or something.
Ike.
Yay!
There it is.
Ike, something weird is going on.
And
Phones?
yeah, so
No,
when
no,
I
the
was
phones are
writing and when I
fine.
was recording and I
Glad
hear
to
it, I'm
hear
picturing that
Ike,
book. It's called Revenge
I
of the
don't
Baby
know how to
Sat.
explain this. Something's happening, and I don't.
yeah.
I don't know how it works or
I don't
why
know.
it's
I
happening.
don't know why it's that, but that's what it is in my brain.
Did we speak yesterday?
Oh,
I love that Kiri reads
I don't
Calvin and
think
Hobbes.
so.
Okay.
Why?
Everyone should.
It's true. It's very true.
I'm very proud of
I
my
walked through the
complete
homestead
Calvin and Hobbes book.
yesterday, or
Not the
what I
one
would
you
say
buy.
was
I went and
yesterday. I
got
don't-
over the course of like 10 years. I got every
I walked
individual
through the door
book,
and ended up back where I started.
including like a rare Sundays collection I found in America. like,
Wow.
like, it's like, oh, I
Ike,
have to get this.
I found a book in the library.
That's not so unusual.
Rare,
But it's
weird thing that I
my
collected.
Book. It's got my name scribbled into the back page. I remember writing it in there, but I found it here, next to the fireplace. How did this get here? It's impossible.
Maybe you left it there.
What?
I don't know.
Like,
When could I have
Mark plays this
possibly left
really
this
well.
here?
Like, it's a difficult thing to
I
try.
don't know.
It was a difficult thing I
don't know
asked
why
him
I
to
said
do.
that.
Um,
I'm sorry.
just saying to Mark, so it's like you know stuff, but you don't know stuff.
Strange things
You say
seem
stuff
to
and you
be
don't know
given
why you said
today.
it. Like, and yeah.
It's always
I
fun to
should
direct
be
an actor
asking
to
if
do
you're
two
okay.
directly conflicting emotions
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah. But no, I mean, Mark carried that
I
very,
don't
very
know
well.
what's going on. Like, I have no idea how to explain it. I went back in time. I've lived an extra day that nobody remembers but me. I can't process that.
We're not really designed to.
I guess so.
We only ever travel in one direction. Taking a step back is something we're not supposed to do. Usually we just look.
Again, stares into the
sound
middle
very
distance in
comfortable
season
with
3.
Yeah.
I mean, the foreshadowing.
I guess
Yeah,
so.
accidental.
Yeah, but
Sorry for
I'm
freaking
but
out there.
I'm glad that it's not going to be a surprise.
By the sounds of it,
It's
a
like,
little freaking
there
out
is-
seems justified.
my advice would be when you've all listened to season 3,
still
re-listen
not
to
seen
seasons
anybody?
1 and 2, and then listen to
Well,
season 3 because I'm
no.
going through something right
As a
now.
Come back and
manual
watch the
wasn't here
stream.
before we left
Experience
this
it with
thing.
us.
I should probably read it. Anyway, I'm glad to hear you're doing okay. Every time I call you, it takes a little bit longer for you to pick up the phone.
Still a long way to go, huh?
Yup.
Okay.
Okay. I've got to test the rest of these phones. Now that the tower's lit up, people might start climbing it again.
Yeah.
You gonna be okay?
Yeah. I've got a book to read now.
I wish I'd cut that line.
Okay.
It doesn't work. Like, it's
Good night, Kiri.
just.
But
Good
what,
night, Egg.
one of the things I do really like about Kiri's character the whole way through the series is that she can be quite angry, like that she gets annoyed. I really like the fact that she has that aspect to her.
Good, because that's the bit I find really difficult to write. I don't like my characters having conflict with each other. I'm just like, I just want everyone to be nice to each other. Why do they have to fight?
The person you are trying to reach is unavailable.
Where are you, Chris?
Please leave a message.
Do we get a knocking this time round? Everybody just... It feels weirdly invasive now.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is. Very that good crunchy conflict. Waking up every morning to a bowl of crunchy conflicts.
Hello?
I'm at the doors again.
The two doors?
Adjacent and unmarked. One open, one not.
Two doors.
Some
That's
they
the-
should enter
the-
with courage.
Is it the doors of heaven and hell are
Got
adjacent
it.
yet unmarked? That was
As a message
that
for something
idea.
to do
I just
with
love
what's
that
happening.
phrase.
I don't know. Maybe?
I called you last night.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No. No, it isn't.
Chris, it's okay as long as you're okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine. I just lost track of time.
I know the feeling. I'm here.
Yeah.
Right?
I was going to ask about that. I suppose you already knew that.
Nobody works on the tower anymore.
I mean, people study it.
Ike somewhere
But
in the
it's been
tower
around
being
a
like,
long time.
hey.
Not that much more
Just
to
like
it.
saying, just like, I mean, you're
Well,
not
that-
wrong.
I mean, not anymore.
Do you think that...
Someone's talking about me. I feel it.
What?
I don't know, my brain's swimming right now.
Yeah. That's a heavy day.
And I might have to repeat it again.
You don't know that.
Yeah, right. I lived a whole day that no one remembers.
Yeah.
What do I do with that?
I don't know.
What if I get sent back again?
You keep going, I guess? What if,
I love this bit. I love
What if you
like
said
the
something
way they did this
if
scene.
you go around again, that proves that you've been through this before?
Like what?
Okay. Okay, so I have the tarot card deck you gave me ages ago.
You still have that?
Well, yeah. Anyway, how about I take 3 cards off the top and tell you what they are? Then, if you loop round again, you can tell past me what the cards are, proving that I told you in the future.
It came out so much nerdier than.
Okay, so we have the moon,
Okay.
the star,
Yep.
and the tower.
Of course.
You got all those?
Yep. Moon, star, tower.
Perfect. I mean, moon's technically inverted, but that's probably not.
Like, Chris, we don't. Anyways, hopefully I won't need
So,
it.
Don't suppose you want a
just
tarot
on the
reading?
talking about the yeah. So
Maybe once I'm moving in one
Paolo's,
direction
like,
again,
Paolo's
I'm sure
party
the
trick
tarot
at
deck was designed
university,
with time
this is-
travel in mind.
was that he used to do a perfect impression of David Tennant as the Doctor going.
I'm gonna go through the door.
Call me the
bring
next
that out
phone
whenever
you
you
get
could.
to, just so I know you're safe.
Did you draw the tarot cards yourself?
See you
or
on the
did
other
you pick them on
side.
purpose? Because obviously
I
they are
hope so.
thematically very relevant.
They were
I hope
picked
I
on
remember
purpose.
today.
Yeah.
And the inversion that was mentioned was also on purpose.
Oh, I love that.
Good night, Chris.
Oh, I love that.
Good night.
Oh, very good. Oh, very good.
Like I did want to bring in the idea of the tarot deck at some point in the series, but I think the issue was that like I think it's not. I think calling it a trope's too strong, but I think it's something that's been done better in other shows, and I'm very much a casual tarot card enjoyer. So I just a couple of tarot cards in the morning, just to get me through the day. But like. Yeah, so I didn't want to make it a key part, but I just wanted to introduce it. And also acknowledge that when you look up the tower on Tumblr, you mostly get tarot stuff. And that's fair enough, honestly.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, so we get the what are you doings at the opening of this one. When I was editing it, it wasn't in the script, and I didn't tell the cast that I was going to do that. So when I sent it to them, basically I just got this very angry message from
Hello?
Chris, I
from
need
Pello
you to
just
look at your
being like,
tarot
how
cards.
dare you do that? You didn't tell us. You did a spookums. It was very
Chris, it's 11 a.m. You slept in again.
filthy tarot casual. Yeah.
Tarot
it's-
cards.
Yeah. Hang on. What's going on?
Right, I'll explain once you get the cards.
This bit's taken
Oh,
from
this is
Star
weird.
Trek.
Just wait.
Okay.
the
I've got the
the
card.
time loop
Right, are
episode
you
in Star
wanting
Trek
a
involves
reading?
the loops always
Chris,
start with a card
I'm
game.
traveling through time. I keep repeating
the second
this
time
day
round
every
there's a
time I
loop.
go through Homestead.
Dr. Crusher,
so you're there.
the best character,
Oh, wait, what?
Wait, and the last
manages to
time
guess
I went
everyone's
through,
cards.
You told me the
And then the
top
third
three
time
cards
round she
in the
tries to
tarot
do it
deck, but I can
again.
quickly prove
And
to you
all
that
the
I'm
cards are
telling
the same.
truth.
I think they're all like an 8 or
That does
something.
sound like
Oh
something
no,
else.
3. Sorry, they're all
The
3.
top 3 cards are Moon, Star, and Tower.
That's a spookum.
But then Data goes.
Right.
There's only meant to be 4 3s in the deck. I don't understand how this is.
This is
It's very good. It's a very very
Okay,
good
so you
scene.
believe me?
yeah, I
Good.
believe you. But
What?
That's a very annoyed what.
the cards, they aren't the ones you said.
What?
Yeah, it's
It's what?
the cards are all the same. They're all the tower.
What I also like about this, though, is
Hey?
Star Trek reference aside,
They
within the
didn't
fiction
used
of
to be.
the tower,
I remember
this is
looking
a
at them after you
radiation
brought them
leak
to me.
of the magic of the tower.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, either Chris isn't real and this
If we're
conversation isn't
talking
real and
about
Kiri
time
isn't
travel,
really
I
talking
think
to him.
anything
Yeah.
Which,
possible at
so
this
far, we've
point.
established he is
I'm gonna
real.
go. I'll speak to
So
you
if he
once
is
we're
real,
inside.
then that means that whatever's happening
okay.
to Kiri in Homestead
What
is
should I
also
do?
happening to Chris,
don't
where
know.
he is far away from the tower in his own home.
Yeah.
Which means that the magic of the tower is getting to him, which I really liked.
We did have a sort of theory among the cast was that the tower is a gravity well, so like time is slightly different for
Why
Chris because he's
doing
away,
this?
or an inverted gravity well, I
Why
guess,
would
because it
you
goes
let
up.
me through?
Um,
Hello?
Oh no, I just heard the knock
there?
again! Oh no, that was actually really scary! Oh, I didn't like that! Oh,
that's Kiri knocking on the door this time.
Oh.
Like,
Hello?
so Sorry.
Well, it's also because it's panned very hard, right? And I'm sitting next to a dark window, and it sounded like someone was banging on that window, and I was just like, it's still there. How could you?
If only I'd known 2 years later. Or a year later, I guess.
Of course, our church.
Oh, that's a... I think I used that wooden door effect in Stellar Firma at one point.
Hello?
It's a great door.
Chunky wooden door effect.
Who lit all the candles?
That's spooky.
Stop asking stupid questions. It must be the wind. That's all it is. The wind.
Yeah, I love the idea of wind going through organ pipes. I think there's like a
There's the phone, but
structure somewhere where it's like basically it's these steps into the sea,
I guess the candles count.
but like when water goes in, like it plays a sound, so you get this like these musical water stairs. It was just like I love that idea.
This isn't too disrespectful, is it? I mean,
There's a
I know
fantasy
this is
novel
meant
called
to be a
Wind Singer,
sanctuary,
which
but
is
that's
like,
still
a similar
high.
premise of like this enormous sort of organ in the middle of the city, and there are people who can manipulate the wind in such a way to make it play music.
Oh, I love that. Like
Ugh.
big impossible instruments,
Stop
big
talking
old
to
fan.
buildings.
Like, I'm very proud of this piece of music. I think
I
this
was
piece
about
of
to
music
say I love this music.
is incredible. I'm very much
Just
just
stay
like
here.
a very simple piece of music, but it came out really, really well.
Be nice.
Um,
It's safe and quiet.
actually sounds like Ryuichi
It's
Sakamoto, which is a
pretty
big
too.
deal for me. I'm just like, yes, I did it, I
It's
did it.
cold, but you get used to cold. Repeat the same day over and over again. Just me and this little town. No more phones.
The organ is,
No more
it's like a
climbing.
pedal organ, so it's one of those ones where you've
No
got
more
like the pedals,
puzzles.
you have to kind of pump air into it manually like that. It has a beautiful sound.
What did you believe in? What do you have to believe in to build something as colossal and as nightmarish as this tower? Huh? Something as safe as this church? What did you believe in to have that kind of hope, that kind of love? Where did it go? Where did it go?
I think this is meant to be like a big zoom out. Like, I think.
Yeah, I can feel that. It coming out of the buildings, the tower to the world, the city,
Yeah.
the planet, the little blue dot.
Not tonight, Ike.
Actually, you know what this music is? It's Interstellar. That's what it's.
Yeah.
I think that's where that's coming from. Where is the.
You know what's really funny is you did an Ubi Sunt speech.
A what?
An Ubi Sunt. So Tolkien does this. Tolkien does it because the Anglo-Saxons did it. The Anglo-Saxons did it because the Romans did it. In classical literature, Ubi Sunt, where are? It's a speech defined by a series of questions. For example, where now are the princes? Where now is the laughter? Where now are the
Wow.
horses? Where now is the singing? And it's used as a lament for, like what happens at the end? Where do we go now? And you do an Ubi Sunt. Kiri does an Ubi Sunt.
Oh, wow. Oh. I love getting these little extra bits of like context to put writing in. I love that.
Hello?
I'm at the 2 doors.
2 doors.
Someday you should enter with courage.
Yep. Yeah, I got it here.
I love how
It
beaten
won't work
down
this
Katrina
time.
sounds in this. Like, that is just.
I don't
just
feel
very
very
good.
courageous today.
Where are the whales?
Are you okay?
Sky whales.
I'm sorry I missed your call last night.
I didn't call.
Oh.
I knew you wouldn't be there.
Oh.
I've done this 3 times, and you've never been there when I've called.
I'm sorry.
What? What's going on, Chris? Huh? Where did you go?
Okay. I've been seeing someone.
Oh. Really?
Yeah, for a couple of weeks now. Though I don't know how long that is with all this time travel stuff.
That's great. Why didn't you tell me?
I didn't think I don't know.
That's wonderful. Who are they? Is it someone from work?
No, it's someone different.
Oh, so you met someone new. I'm impressed.
Not quite, no.
Chris?
It's Jessie.
I like that transition as we move
Yes.
to focus on Kiri.
Yeah, like, I think the more the series goes on, the more
Jessie
deliberate
is
those
the
transitions
person
become,
you're
because the more I realise, like, the effect that they
she
have.
got in touch and we started talking, and one thing.
And,
led-
and you're
in
just
particular
going
in
to
part
forget
3.
everything that happened before.
Now look, Kiri.
I'm so
You were
excited
there.
to release part 3.
You
I'm so
saw what
excited.
she did to me, what she tried to do. You pointed it out to
It's
me.
really
remember?
good.
She's doing the exact same thing to you now.
You don't know that. This is different. This is.
How is it different, Chris?
Look, who else was I supposed to talk to? Kiri?
Just they both kill
Did
it
you
in the
think I was
scene.
going to
I hate
sit
it.
here and wait for you? Even when there's a good chance you might just never come back? Your whole world has changed, but mine is exactly the same. I'm still here. Only now I have no one I can call when I need them. No one to talk to. I only get to talk to you when it's convenient for you. Jessie was kind to me. She spoke to me. She listened. She was there when I needed someone, when you weren't.
There are 8 billion people in the world, and you had to hook up with the one person who's hurt me more than anyone else.
Kiri.
Go to hell, Chris.
Just imagine that as like a...
It sounds like a punch.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Chris dick move. Like I don't like it when my characters fight. Like, they're supposed to be helping each other, but at the same time, I feel like this kind of had to happen in this series. I kind of wanted to create a bit of friction, and god damn it, they're good actors. I hate them.
And I do also think that, like, okay, so on the one hand, we've got the thing which is when you break up with someone and weirdly the sense of commitment and obligation fades last. Like, okay, I don't want to do intimate stuff with this person anymore in whatever manner that might mean for you. But often the expectation that they'll still be there when you need them, though, like,
Yeah.
that's the kind of last thing to go away. But it is quite a selfish expectation. Like, I'm very much, obviously, whatever Jessie did, it was bad. And I love Kiri. I'm Team Kiri, just to be super clear. However, expecting Chris to just freeze his life indefinitely, and, like, the point he makes, which is that, yeah, like, she does just, whenever she needs him, she gets to call, but he never gets the other way around. And I feel like that is a thing to talk about that I like that you talk about in the series, which is, you know, we try to treat each other with love and kindness, but an important thing is that we can't, that's not one-sided.
Yeah.
And it's good that Kiri is taking this time for herself and doing this thing for herself, and she's everyone has the right to do that. But also, by that token, if everyone has the right to do that, Chris has the right to do that too, in his own way. And that means moving on and having a relationship and doing his changing his world thing.
Yeah, and I think I kind of wanted to do that thing where it was just like, you have, you know, that idea of you can't go back to a place, like, but once you've left somewhere, it's not going to be the same when you go back. And I think, you know, we openly talk about that in the next few episodes, because the next few episodes are when a thing happened in the world. Yeah, like I think there was a lot of, in part 2 in particular, there was a lot of just leaving, this idea of leaving something behind and coming to terms with that, and realizing that, like, things do change and you kind of just have to move with it sometimes. Either you accept it or you don't, but it's better to try and work with it. And that kind of works with the time and the time loop and stuff as well. I think that was so as much as like, I think that scene is absolutely great. I hate it, but at the same time I think it's a good scene, and I think both Paolo and Katrina like absolutely just smash it out of the park in that scene. I really like that episode. I think it's a very strong episode, and also I like it because it does the thing where I've talked about this when talking about Middle Below. I like making a formula and then finding out ways to subvert it. It's what we did with Middle Below. It was like, right, I want to do a monster of the week, but then kind of with every episode I go, okay, how is this not a monster of the week? How is this something different from that? So it meant that we never had a straightforward Monster of the Week episode. And what I really like about this one is that it starts to kind of bend that formula and play around with it. And then you get an interlude, which is quite short and quite nice. And then you've got these 2 episodes that are just kind of their own thing, which I really like. And now we have an interlude, which I really like. This is me being Brian May, but on a keyboard. Because there's a Queen song called Prophet Song, where there's a bit in the middle where basically it does this, where there's notes and then there's it repeats, and then you add another note and they all repeat forever. Freddie Mercury does that with vocals and creates like a choir just by himself, but just like live, and it was the first time anyone had ever done something like that. And I loved it. I thought it was great, and I wanted to do something like that. Maybe the monster of the week was the friends we made along the way.
Also, in case you would like to know, Poppy is here watching us. She is staying backstage, but she's sitting in the doorway.
Poppy sighted. It's just straight away. Just have the. I do still have the Poppy emote. So this was one take. This was just me on here. Yeah, because it all come out of the piano. So this is all one take, other than the synth parts over the top.
Wow.
This is me. I basically just hit record, played for 3 minutes, and I was like, right, can I turn this into a song and add extra things in? So this is an improvised. You know, the fog clears from part 1 was very written and very improvised. This very scored and orchestrated. This is the opposite of that, where it's like, I'm just going to play, record, and then try and work with it. idea was is that you've got lots of timelines crossing over each other, repeating and circling around, and
Yeah, you can hear that. It's almost like a web.
yeah. Yeah, it's just like, how can we represent this with music? And see if that Around is a good comparison. Yeah, it's a very good comparison.
I love the big deep notes.
They had to go on a really long time because of the delay, so because otherwise they just sound really muddy. So like, you can hear them repeating. Did you just sneeze?
She just sneezed. It was really cute.
So yeah, well, I think we'll just roll straight into episode 5 because I'm very aware of timing. Yeah. So I really like the clock tower, and it's very weird for me to be like, I love this like ambience, but I really like the clock tower ambience. Like, I'm very proud of it. Like, it's...
I love it too.
using. Sorry, that looked like a robot cat on my screen. That much of it, that's adorable.
Finally.
That's my friend's cat Molly. Oh.
I've been trying to
Is that
get
Molly
here
or Malloy?
for days now.
I think it's Malloy.
Malloy.
Oh,
And no
wonderful.
matter how
Fantastic
the village
name for a cat.
changes, I can always see the clock tower. I wonder if this has always been working, or if the beacon had something to do with it.
Very proud of that transition. That
Quite
was
as you.
seamless.
I'm almost above the clouds now. So far away. Still eerie that there are phones and.
See you later,
fire
Mysteries. Thank you so
pits
much for
wherever I
being
go.
here. It was good to see you again.
Someday there is going to be an explanation for that. Then again, I'm not sure what someday means at this point. I'm not even sure what time means anymore. My watch is completely confused. Time changes depending on how high up you are.
This is the big thesis.
Something to do with gravity and space. It moves faster up here than down at the base. I've lived that little bit longer than everyone else. And that's before you start thinking about the time travel.
It's quite quiet, but there's a clock ticking in the music track because the music is 60 BPM. So it's a little tiny little sound. It's also
like
called
life
Time,
is
and may have accidentally used a similar chord
immortal.
structure to the Pink Floyd song. Not the same chords, the same structure.
before.
So it's in
It
slightly
felt like I
different
was
keys.
standing still and the world just kept turning. Same pattern every day. It was the only thing to do at that point. I guess I should have seen this coming. I love listening to clocks, listening to time pass.
I think this is my favourite piece of music from part 2.
there's something
Like,
peaceful
it's-
about it.
Yeah.
The seconds slow or speed up with you, whether you stand still or when you move ever so slightly. I've lived 4 extra days that no one remembers. Where does that fit into all of this?
Yeah, I love this bit.
I just really like it. I'm trying to remember what, because it wouldn't have been these because I didn't have them yet. But yeah, I'm trying to remember
really can't go back, can I? Too much has changed.
Also, it's just really nice to have an episode that's more or less just Kiri. Like, I think it was nice to have it for that period of time. Have a really extended monologue, which is really nice.
My favorite audio drama trope that I can never resist when I'm making audio drama as well is kettle boiling to indicate building of pressure and release of pressure. It's just such a good sound. We all know what it means.
I was very proud of myself with. Oh, well, first of all, this is.
That's a burnt tongue. Okay, yep. Serves me right.
In Middle Below, in episode 3 of Middle Below, you can hear a kettle boil in real time. Like,
Oh wow.
it's just in the background for like 2.5 minutes or something.
Impressive.
I was very pleased with myself. It's like, oh, great.
Hello? Gary!
It's the
How are you
same
doing?
every time.
Hey!
Hooray!
Where have you got to?
The clock tower. At last.
At last. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know why.
It's just the way that he's so much like.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is, but yeah, you know, you clock in, you clock
No,
out, like the
that's
9 to 5, the daily grind. What am I talking about?
I knew
You're stuck in a time, you're in a time loop. It just happens all the time. Eventually, you get to the clock tower. It's the center of that time loop. You have some big discovery about yourself, and then the next day you come in Mondays. Am I right?
There was one day where you
Yeah.
didn't pick up, and I figured you were just doing a lot
Great.
of hype.
Oh.
It's
I have a folder.
foggy.
It's like I went through and I'm like Mark is at the
Why?
point where he's like I will make the waveform
been a
look
bit
the
foggy.
same every time. Like
yeah.
Yeah. The past and the present are blurring.
I figured the past was why you were up there to begin with.
that's the wrong word. I should have said
guess
up
so.
here rather than up there. That's annoying.
I don't think I've ever thought about it that way.
Has a funny way of sticking around in the present.
Oh, what's the, it's something, but thinking makes it so, what is that?
Ooh,
I should say Pello bullies me for putting Shakespeare lines
there is
in audio
nothing good
drama.
or bad, but thinking makes it
He
so.
calls it the union mandated Hamlet reference.
Tell me that one.
Shout out
Just
to
reading
Arden, season 2.
Yes.
Something.
Yes.
I can't remember.
It's very good.
It's from there.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm just feeling reflective.
Oh yeah?
I think I just assumed that I'd come out of this and go back home. Back to normal. I'm starting to realize that that's not really possible anymore.
Do you want to go back to normal?
I don't know. In some ways, yes. I wasn't happy before, but it was stable, predictable. Now I don't know what I'm doing or where I'm going. I don't even know what day it is anymore.
You'd rather be able to know the future.
I'd like to know if I'm going to be okay. Is that too much to ask?
Well, I don't know how this ends, and I know you don't either. And there's not much either of us can do about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the monologue of
Anyway,
a thing has happened.
We've got another voicemail, which I think might be for you.
Really?
Yeah, I'll patch it through.
This is the other bit of
Think I've
music I
got this
really
worked
love
out.
in this series.
You
I really
here,
like it.
and you're friends with this guy, and then that means you go.
Just
Yep.
so many, like, sound design, sound engineer jokes in here of just, like,
Kiri, it's Mum. Yeah, I'm sorry I missed your call. I was
Oh,
out hiking
yeah,
again.
Sarah's performance here, my god.
The hills are getting
Like-
bigger and bigger, and the walks are taking longer and longer. It's not too bad, as I have the time now. It's okay, Kiri. I know you're busy and you should be busy, but not too busy. I learned that one the hard way. If you work too hard, You're very much like us that way. But we turned out fine. As did you. There is time for long walks now. Yeah, I hope your trip is going well. It can be hard when you're away to ground yourself in something, especially when everything is changing around you. That can also be exciting. And I know you won't shy away from it, and that you'll keep on moving forward regardless, because you are my daughter. With all the bravery and stubbornness of her parents and much, much more besides. It is okay to worry, you know. I mean, even the strongest of us have days when we must rest, and that's how it should be. There were days when I would worry for you constantly, obsessively, even though I knew you'd be alright. I still do, from time to time. But oh, you're older, and I think wiser some of the time. Yeah, we're okay, Kiri. We miss you. But we are proud of you. Every day. And every step of the way, we are behind you. You know, you're always miles ahead of us, eh? Yeah, there will be time to visit, Kiri. Don't worry. And there will be time for long walks. Okay, take care. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Oh, I love that scene. It's like, again, it happened, you know, got the takes, put the takes in. Yeah, right. Oh man. Like there was a bit the bit where she goes, "You are my daughter." Like basically, I'd made the music and I'd made the, you know, and I had the tape all edited, and I put the music in and hit play, and then the bit where the music changes, that just happened. That wasn't planned. That just happened when I put the music in. I had to lie down. I was just like, oh, like, I don't understand why they hit so hard every time. Like, I don't understand the power of the thing that has been created here.
For me, there's a lot there, which is like, she's trying so hard to say something that she does not have the words to say.
Yes.
Which is a thing that many of us have done to many of the people we love.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when we worry about them, especially when we want to tell them how much we love them. And the way that she just keeps pressing against this wall of communication between them, it's sort of like loving is all about trying and failing and trying again anyway.
Yeah.
Kind of the thing.
Yeah.
For me at least, I think that there's a lot there about that desperate walk to loving her daughter.
Yeah. No, I love that scene. I love that scene very, very much. Yeah. Highlight of the series for me, I think. That whole episode I love very much from the beginning. Right, we have one more episode. Last one. Last one of the evening. Thank you for sticking around so long. The intent was to finish at 10. And thank you so much for staying up and sticking around. Please.
I am on this ship.
Let's roll into this, and yeah, let's get this series finished. Oh, excuse me. So this is the very generous voice of Charlotte Ryder, who plays
Hi, this is Jess.
Heather
I can't
in
get to the
middle
phone
below.
right now, so please
Kiri's
leave a
mum is her own
message,
time with
and
reaching
I'll
out
get
and
back
not
to you
feeling
later.
a change.
Thanks.
Oh.
I can't do this anymore, Jesse.
Exactly.
I want you to
Yeah.
be okay. You know I do, but I can't.
So here's an interesting
do
fact about
the
this
same
episode.
Thing over and over again.
So the way this episode
Can't
was
keep
supposed to
calling me in the
end
middle of the night or showing
initially
up at my place when you feel alone,
was that
only
Kiri
to
tries to
run
call
away when
Jesse,
you remember
and
that
that's where you hear
Sasha
Jesse's
exists.
voicemail, and then
And get mad at me
she
when
hangs
I
up.
get upset.
and then that's when she goes through the doors.
You
Um,
ended this, Jesse.
and we recorded it that way.
And I accepted that.
But then when we came into the edit, it was like, no, this doesn't. This
hurt.
isn't the way this is supposed to end, and did it
hurt
the
so
way
much,
it
but we
lands, and I
weren't
think it
making
hits.
each other happy
It works
anymore.
this way, I think, much better. So.
I'd known
Um,
Sasha was.
So yeah, so it doesn't always have to be perfect in the script. You can do that. Obviously, that's better if it is, but
You can't keep people hanging on like this. It's not fair.
I like that.
I
One of the
can't do
great
this
things about the
anymore.
tower is how much it does change constantly, right up until the point where it gets released. I've always liked that about it. This is a weird last episode because, as much as it's a finale, it's not really a finale. It's just it's like an emotional resolution, and that's it really. And then it's like, right, okay, off I go in that direction, and then that's the series
Hello.
ending. But it's still got the
Hey.
music of
It's me.
this is a finale.
Hi.
This is quite strange.
Everything
Carry back
okay?
theory
I
of fiction.
haven't heard from you in a
Yes.
while.
You're not doing linear storytelling. You're not doing
It's-
Hero's Quest. You're not doing action,
It's
plot,
been a very,
movement,
very
whatever.
long-
And then we finish doing the
Yeah.
series of actions and we move on. You're
Yeah.
doing the.
Yeah.
We reach a moment of emotional completion,
Where
and then we
are
start
you now?
again.
Yeah.
Carry back theory of fiction.
I
You're going in
went
circles.
through
It's a good thing to do.
Homesteads.
Yes.
Oh wow!
I love that.
Do
It's
that.
a very, very good.
Yeah. It's a strange place. A very strange place.
I think it's
I can
worth taking a
imagine.
minute to like appreciate
I'm
what
at the
Pello
two
has
doors
to
now.
do in this episode.
Okay.
Which is like-
2 doors.
Yep.
Acts as though this is the first
adjacent
time this is
and
happening
unlocked.
for him,
Hang on.
and I think he plays it really. He
Someday
plays
you
it
should
like
enter
as though
recovery.
nothing has happened,
Yep. I got it.
which is exactly what
Wait.
you're supposed to like. Oh,
What?
How did you? Never mind.
like just
How
oh.
have you been?
I've been okay. Not much has changed.
Is that like because for Chris nothing's changed?
Which door are you going to go through?
They had a conversation and that was it. Like
Well, only one's open. Though it's different from.
What?
Never mind.
You okay?
Yeah. I've just done a lot of thinking these past few days. Well, this day. Today.
Anything you want to talk about?
I didn't realize how much I've changed since I started doing this. And how much weight I was carrying with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't keep hanging on to things. It's not fair on anyone.
What do you mean?
I think one of the really
guess-
fun things about writing this particular series, part 2, was trying to work
I
out how
guess
to
when
talk
I
about
left, I sort of expected everything to
like there's,
stand
I think there's a
still while
Hitchhiker's
I was
quote which
gone.
is like the chief problem with time travel is one of grammar,
Time
and I loved exploring that idea in this.
God, it sounds so silly now.
I mean,
One
it
of the things
did
I really
feel like
enjoyed
everything
doing
was
with this
standing
piece, because this piece of
still
music
already before.
is the same music as the finale for part
You know what
1,
I mean?
just rearranged, and like
Yeah,
that's one of the
I do.
really fun things about this series is taking all the music that has been done already and like
It's
taking bits
selfish
and
of
putting
me
it back
to
in
think
and
that life
putting it in
back
different
home
ways.
will
It's a very rewarding process. It means that when you get to something
people
like
I
part
care
3,
about
you've got
won't
so much
change.
to deal with. You're just like, how do I keep
Won't
making new
move
things with
on.
this? But it's a lot of fun. It's very.
I need to let go of that.
It feels very much like we're working on a really big work, a really big piece of music, which is what I've always wanted to do, which is great.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere. You know that, right?
I do. So, what's through the door?
I'm not sure. More stairs, I think?
That's a guess, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Great.
You can do it.
Chris,
Yeah?
you don't have to wait for me. You shouldn't have to put your life on hold for this, for me.
Okay.
We spent a long time working out how to pitch that just
Right.
because we were kind of like, does Chris work it out?
I'm gonna go through the
Or
door.
does Chris have no idea? And
Remember the
we're trying to
couch.
pitch it bang in the middle
I
of
will.
that. Very, took a long time.
Good luck, Kiri.
Thank you. Good night, Chris.
Good night.
Big bassy piano chords.
Remember the courage.
Is this the version that has the credits?
The Tower.
Yes, it is.
Part
Okay, let's just
by David Davis.
fade that
Featured
down.
voices of Katrina Allen.
Very- Yes, that's part 2. That is the story so far. That is Tower Part 1 and 2. It has been wonderful to listen to them together. Like I said, I think I've only done that once before, so it's. So I guess this time next year we'll be listening to Part 1, 2, and 3 all together, because Part 3 comes out on Friday. Oh God! Oh, I'm very excited. Like it's. I think it's the part that it's the part that I'm the most proud of. Mainly because we've had.
If you don't get me a piece of merchandise that says the tower with 3
I
instead
will
of
make you a
V,
badge.
Yes, please. Thank you. I appreciate that. You're a wonderful friend.
So there's another audio drama called Tower 4, and I saw a Twitter post from the editor basically being like, "Oh, I'm editing the Tower 4," and I genuinely thought I was seeing through time into the future. Like I was just like, "What?" Like, yeah, like I'm the Tower Part 3 has had the most input from the cast and crew. It's also had the input from a fantastic executive producer, very talented and incredible executive producer.
I really like podcasts, especially this one. Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I'm incredibly excited for the Tower Part 3. Everybody that I have showed it to so far has said it is good.
It is good.
And if you are one of our wonderful Ko-fi members, you'll be getting all of it on the 29th. You'll be getting all of it all in one go. And for everyone else, you'll be getting episode 1 on the 30th, and it'll also be available on Bandcamp for you to download as a series. It's the longest series so far. We're trying something new and making normal podcast lengths per episode. But yeah, so look out for that on Friday. Thank you so much for coming along tonight. It has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Ella, for joining us for the stream tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. I was saying I'm very excited to be on the other side of this because I like watching these streams. I like being in the chat with y'all. So I was like, ooh, Now I get to be on this side. I'm seeing the ghost from a different angle. It's great.
Yeah, we'll hopefully have you back on for some other streams soon to talk about more things, because otherwise this would have just been me talking about how the music was made, and we wouldn't have had all that fantastic insight about writing and themes and things. So thank you so much for being here and being on the stream, and for sticking out. It's so long. Good Lord, this went on so much longer than I was expecting it to. Yes, so there will be more streams coming soon. I don't know when they will be starting again, but they will. There is lots of music. Looking forward to the long tower. It just be like just fan four stick, but just like lots of different numbers in the tower. Anyway, sorry, I'm very tired now. It's just hit me how long we've done this.
We're going into the hysterical mode. Yeah.
Little tiny bit. So. Thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Please follow if you want to keep up to date on when we're streaming next. That will hopefully be sometime early next month, because it's winter and I need to make music to get through winter, I've decided. So yes, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to say goodnight. I'm going around in circles now. So I hope you have a fantastic week, and we will hopefully see you soon. Good night.
Bye.